DLN, originally to capture the thieves first capture the king. The first enemy that caught Chu Yang's eyes was hidden in a layer of leaves. Only his cold and alert eyes were shown. They were devoid of any emotions. One look at those eyes and you could tell this was a skilled and seasoned soldier. This kind of person only has one creed in life: kill the enemy and complete the task. On the ground in front of him was a row of hidden crossbows. Each was already preloaded with 10 shiny black arrows, ready to be fired. Chu Yang carefully held his breath and advanced slowly. His body was currently hidden on a treetop. Like a silent ghost, he advanced in an extraordinary manner. Looking down from up high, Chu Yang carefully scanned all 4 directions below. Nearby there were many more such shiny arrows. From the number of arrows, he guessed there were at least 50 to 60 people. This ambush was clearly planned well ahead of time. How did the enemies know that the group would rest here? Plus, they actually buried the bow and arrows in advance. Looking at the enemies' hiding positions, Chu Yang could not help but frowned. They were extremely well calculated. From each position, they could keep watch on at least 3 of their companions. They can easily help each other, without fail. On the off chance that someone got discovered, they can provide support. Only the most elite of military soldiers could come up with this plan. If he attacked anyone in the group, 3 others would immediately find out. The enemy's hiding positions not only were extremely well covered to the outside, they also created a battle formation without any blind spots. It was impossible to quietly attack a group like this one. The only thing left to do was to fight from the inside out. There was no other way. In the center of this formation, behind some short bushes, was a vague silhouette of a person sitting very still. At first glance, this person was not special in comparison to the others, but Chu Yang recognized that this was the most important person. This was because the place he was hiding in had at least 10 people watching. For other places in the formation, there was only a maximum of 5 people watching. Moreover, his position was at the center. The whole thing was essentially a net of protection for him. Next to him, nestled amongst the foliage, was an extremely large piece of equipment. It was the siege crossbow. At this moment, beyond the thick forest, the sound of Manager Gao and 8 other people talking were clearly heard. If you take Du Shi King and turn around, we will not pursue. As these words fell on Chu Yang's ears, he was a little shaken. He could already make a rough guess who these people were. They had the siege crossbow, plus, they were very disciplined. Of course they were of military background. Chu Yang's body continued to float in a ghostly manner as he approached the leader. Suddenly, he pushed hard with his 2 legs and his whole body shot down from the treetop like a lightning bolt. Like a hawk grabbing its prey, his 10 fingers curled as he fiercely sprung forward. When Chu Yang was less than a meter away from this person, the air hissed. An arrow suddenly flew toward Chu Yang. This arrow seemed to have alerted the whole group. Some 30 to 40 sharp arrows flew like lightning from all directions, creating a series of violent whistling sounds in the air. The first arrow was the real threat. The others were clearly one step too late. Chu Yang tilted his body to one side, and the first arrow passed by his nose, missing it by about a centimeter. His hands kept their original stances, continued to fly down. After seeing the positions of the enemies, Chu Yang immediately changed his approach. He took a more aggressive initiative. He only needed the group to discover him. Along with his speed to disrupt their rhythm, he could destroy their perfect cooperation. This was not the time to kill the enemies, but to disrupt their formation first. Furthermore, that other person was of great importance. Capturing him was enough to destroy this ambush. In seizing this man, he had the opportunity to finish this in one shot. This person immediately saw Chu Yang. His eyes flashed, but he never panicked. He screamed, and his whole body jumped up. The moment he was off the ground he turned, and, with arms outstretched, shot 10 arrows in Chu Yang's direction. This was followed by a flash of a saber fiercely slashing in the direction of Chu Yang's neck. Chu Yang's agile body easily avoided those 10 arrows. In a flash, his right arm went forward past the saber, and his clawed hand straightened as he palmed the nape of this powerful person. This movement was extremely fast. The person glared at him. His eyes flashed a look of disbelief as his whole body fell down like a wooden block. Even though this person's reaction was very quick, but Chu Yang had momentum from falling down from up high. Plus, The other person was caught by surprise. His reaction came too late. Chu Yang did not wait until his body touched the ground. His right hand grabbed the person's collar and lifted him up. Chu Yang's 2 feet had just touched the ground when he pushed hard, and he shot back into the air. After he just flew up, his legs immediately pushed hard against a large tree. The large tree shook violently under his push. Leaves flew down like rain. Like an arrow, Chu Yang flew straight out of the forest. That person must have weighed almost 200 pounds. But Chu Yang held him with his right hand as if it was nothing. His quick actions was not affected in the slightest. Hundreds of arrows gave chase behind him, but Chu Yang was not bothered by them. He simply swayed his body a few times to avoid them. Chu Yang's black clothes were ripped apart in the front and back, but his body did not have one scratch. It clearly looked as if a few arrows were piercing into Chu Yang's body, but the next moment, those arrows only went through his clothes and flew out in a strange manner. Chu Yang's silhouette did not change as he flew faster and faster. The soldiers in hiding were clearly concerned about the fact that Chu Yang was holding that person. With each arrow, they tried their best to avoid him. In doing so, they have unwittingly helped Chu Yang's movement as well as verification of the person's identity. This person was definitely not ordinary at all. Chu Yang's 2 legs successively kicked fiercely on the tree trunks. His body was like an electrical pulse flying through the thick forest. Most of the arrows that tore through the wind after him ended up in tree trunks. After a few breaths, Chu Yang left in a blur as they were still mobilizing. As for him, he was already almost out of the thick forest. In front of him, there was suddenly a loud roar as a few people simultaneously jumped out. They swung their sabers fiercely blocking Chu Yang's escape. Chu Yang's eyes flashed as his 2 legs suddenly pushed hard. He was originally moving forward, but now he mysteriously flew straight up into the air by about 3 meters. After rising above their heads, Chu Yang continued to push against the big tree trunks and flew out like a shooting star, leaving shaking trees in his wake. He was finally out of the forest and into the wide open fields. The ambush party in the surroundings could no longer stay hidden. They revealed themselves as they came out from all 4 directions to give chase after Chu Yang. Behind the black masks, their eyes have all lost the extreme calm of earlier. They were replaced with only concern. They had developed a very meticulous plan. The 8 experts were to come out and reduce the group power. In the chaos, they would attack and kill Du Shi King, and disappear right afterward. They did not plan on the appearance of this wretched, unknown boy, who shot straight into their crucial position and caught their commander. And, thus, he has wrecked their plans. Even though they were all furious, each person was also extremely puzzled. How could this youth have penetrated the center of their tight-knitted defense with such accuracy? Was it possible that he has some kind of divining ability? With their plans fallen apart like this, how could they return? The great man in Chu Yang's clutches was still unconscious and oblivious to everything that was happening around him. Chu Yang did not want to take his life. It was not that Chu Yang was afraid to kill people. Killing people was truly a very easy thing for him. What he was most concerned with was resolving the current danger. The second thing was finding out the origin of these people. They were most likely from Iron Cloud. Moreover, they were probably the dead warriors, DLN, ready to die to accomplish their tasks. Under Prince Taibutan's command, they would be the only people who did not want Du Shi King to come to Iron Cloud. On the off chance that Du Shi King could perform a miracle and help Tai Shi Cheng recover his health, the country of Iron Cloud would fall into the peculiar situation of having 2 kings. No matter how solid the relationship between the 2 were, their underlings would not necessarily see it that way. Taibutan was currently the spiritual pillar, the savior, and the only hope of Iron Cloud Nation. Tai Shi Cheng's recovery would have a huge effect on Taibutan's status. More importantly, it would decrease the military's morale because no army can be loyal to 2 leaders at the same time. Facing Daiwu King Ru under such conditions, Iron Cloud would most certainly be doomed to failure. If these people were indeed who Chu Yang thought they were, he absolutely could not kill them. Iron Cloud's strength had greatly fallen in comparison to Great Zhao already. Therefore, not even a little strength should be wasted. These dead warriors were the treasure of the military. If he killed them, one thing would be certain, at least one unit of Ironclad's military would fall into chaos. While the effect of this could not be predicted, but there would surely be an overall effect on the war. Chu Yang had planned to reverse fate and help Tai Butan defeat Daiwu King Ru, so he could not kill these people. Chu Yang came out of the thick forest like a meteor. Behind him an entire black-outfitted army swarmed out in pursuit. Chu Yang was not the least bit concerned with it as he jumped up and down in between the two clashing sides. While he was still in midair, Chu Yang yelled loudly, "If you want him alive, you will all stop." After finishing this sentence, Chu Yang dropped to the ground. He staggered and then rolled on the ground with the other person. Afterward, he struggled to stand up, but fell to the ground once more. At this point, his face was flushed as he breathed heavily. After a violent coughing fit, he spit out blood on the ground. From the beginning to end of his whole feat, Chu Yang was virtually not breathing. His actions were continuous without any breaks, so, naturally, his internal systems have suffered some shock. Now that he had a chance to catch his breath, his whole body had become completely relaxed with no strength left at all. However, the first thing he had to do was bring the icy cold sword to the man's neck. And like that, Chu Yang knelt on the ground with one hand holding the sword to the man's neck, panting heavily. His appearance was disheveled, but his eyes were calm and cold. Looking at those eyes, no one dared to move. If they did not follow his order, that man's head would surely fall to the ground. The currently situation had become exceedingly dangerous. Manager Gao was under attack from 6 people. Even though he was not beaten, he was also not free to save Du Shi King. The 6 realized that they were not Manager Gao's opponents, so in a desperate attempt to hold him they took turns and attacked him in a suicidal manner. Even though they were all wounded, they were determined to fight to the death. The other 2 had already reached the carriage. Out of the 8 guards that followed, 4 were already on the ground. Only a little more time and the carriage would be destroyed, exposing Du Shi King within. However, everything was reversed within a second. Everyone was fiercely fighting with each other when they suddenly became paralyzed. They looked at Chu Yang in astonishment, unable to say a word. This youth was a mess. His clothes was tattered. He looked as if he was on his last breath. Additionally, there was blood at the edge of his mouth. He seemed to be dying. If some silly youth yelled out like that, he would have been greeted with a sword. However, seeing the person he was holding, they knew that this was no joke. Even though he was breathing heavily, his sword was steady and remained unmoved. His eyes remained alert in all 4 directions. "Release him." The masked leader immediately recognized who Chu Yang was holding. He could not help but roar in anger. At this point, he even felt it was a little surreal. How could this be? Was the general not under strict protection? 100 dead warriors, of which 8 were martial masters, 20 were martial warriors, and the rest were martial pupils of high grade. Plus, there were also the 50 archers and the siege crossbow. Such a powerful force never lost to any army. This plan was supposed to be no different from squatting a mosquito with a mountain. That divine doctor was supposed to be chopped to pieces here. How did the general fall into the hands of the enemy? The whole thing happened in the dark of night, and it was also in treacherous terrain. Moreover, the general's position was in the center of the formation, under many layers of protection. How did he get here? Release him? Still panting, Chu Yang laughed. If you were me, would you release him? You happened to catch an insignificant person in our group, and you still dare to use him to threaten us? What a joke. Even though the leader was anxious, his voice was calm once again. Insignificant person? Chu Yang laughed. So he is only an insignificant person? After he finished speaking, he suddenly moved his arm. The blade sliced the man's shoulder and fresh blood spilled everywhere. All the masked people revealed a look of shock in their eyes. One of them was so concerned that he took a step forward. What are you doing? The masked person asked, controlling his anger. Still holding his sword, Chu Yang glanced at him and said sadly, you just told me that he is only an insignificant person. I was so depressed, I could barely hold on to my sword. Anyway, if he is only an insignificant person, you should just continue your battle. Haha, we should divide our duties clearly. You kill him, Du Shi King, and I'll kill him, your leader. After he finished talking, Chu Yang turned his sword around and slowly but decisively stabbed the general's arm. Chu Yang's gaze was full of mockery as he looked at the masked man facing him. He casually let the blood spill on him. Hold on. The masked leader finally gave in and took a step forward. What are your demands? Very simple. You and your people back up and let us go. Chu Yang's breathing had normalized. He unsteadily stood up, dragging the arm of the other man. When we are safe, I will let this insignificant person go. Ha ha. When he said the words insignificant person, he deliberately acted as if he had difficulty breathing and spoke very slowly, showing full sarcasm. You have to remove the sword and then we'll talk. The masked person spoke anxiously and angrily. Torturing someone like that, how can you call yourself a hero? Hero? I am not a hero. Chu Yang slowly pulled the sword out and said coldly, I currently only have one purpose. It is to arrive at Iron Cloud Citadel safe and sound. Things like today, I hope to not encounter a second time. I will comply. The masked leader said sincerely, but how do I know if you are trustworthy? Chu Yang said coolly, until now, I have not bothered to remove his mask. Is this enough sincerity? The masked man spoke in amazement. That's right. That's more than enough. Not removing the mask of his enemy meant that the opponent did not want to make a big deal out of the incident, giving both sides a possible exit. If he had taken the mask off, then the general's identity would have been revealed. At that time, the only course of action would be to kill everyone to destroy the evidence. Naturally, this killing would also affect the life of the general, not to mention Fire Saber Great Master, Gao Weicheng. If he wanted to escape, then none of them could stop him. Du Shi King was invited by Tai Putan, the Prince of Iron Cloud. Plus, he went with permission from Great Zhao. If Gao Weicheng escaped and told people of this, then everything would fall apart. This was dangerous to the relationship of the two countries. Once this was discovered, they would easily be judged as traitors of Iron Cloud. The consequences would be disastrous. The leader raised his hand and whistled a signal, and approximately 80 or 90 masked men in black immediately lined up in an orderly fashion. In the blink of an eye, they created an awe-inspiring, impregnable wall. Manager Gao and the 4 remaining guards felt as if they were dreaming. They were just in a precarious situation and the enemy was about to succeed. They were feeling angry and hopeless when Chu Yang, unexpectedly, appeared with another person. What was even more surprising was the fact that he yelled for them stop. And indeed the enemies did stop. Now that they were hearing the conversation, they know that this other person was the commander of the team. Unbelievable. How could there be such coincidences? This was truly unimaginable. It was truly risky to enter the enemy's formation alone. But to kidnap the commander and once again waltz through many layers of defenses, turning the tide of the battle in the blink of an eye with the power of just one person. Was this a myth or a legend? It seemed that no such thing has ever been written in history. Everyone looked at Chu Yang in a different light. There is one thing I need. The person in black hesitated, then continued, I want to verify that person is still alive. No problem. Chu Yang said enthusiastically. After that he palmed the person's heart and transferred a wave of cold air into his body. That person immediately shivered and became alert, at which point, he discovered his situation and yelled out angrily, what are you waiting for? Kill them now. But, sir, no need to worry about me. The hostage yelled. At this point, what are you worrying about me for? Sir, your mask has not been taken off. Chu Yang said softly, plus, you have lost. In this situation, will you even be able to fight us to the death? Would your subordinate dare to do such thing? The man became livid. He cursed, bastard. Who are you? How are we defeated? What qualifies you to tell us we have lost this battle? My qualification is. Chu Yang said arrogantly, you are in my hands. You are only a fish waiting to be flayed. Understand? The hostage immediately became quiet and started breathing heavily. His eyes were full of shame and anguish. Suddenly, he twisted his body and tried to bring his neck into Chu Yang's blade. People yelled out in terror. Chu Yang laughed coldly. With a powerful lift, he tossed the hostage to the ground with just one arm. He kicked his butt, and said viciously, if you don't listen to me, then even if you die, I will strip off your mask and your clothes as well. Then I will use your body as a flag to enter Iron Cloud Citadel. If you like, You can go ahead and give me a try. The man was stunned and finally calmed down. He was not afraid of death, but what Chu Yang just said was downright malicious. With his prestigious position in Ironcloud, he could not suffer such humiliation even after death. There was also the reputation of his family, the reputation of the military. Fine. He sighed. What you want is to arrive at Ironcloud Citadel safely. I will comply. From here on, no one will try to stop you. I don't have any faith in those words. Chu Yang said coldly, we'll have to ask you to escort us. You. The man turned and glared at Chu Yang. Chu Yang was shaken when he saw within those eyes an endless coldness along with great power. Moreover, those eyes seemed to speak of a haughtiness and a lack of respect for life. This was definitely a character of high position. No need to stare at me like that. Once we are safe, I will let you go. I know you are concerned. Rest assured, I will not make it hard on you and will not disclose your identity. Even I do not know who you are. Chu Yang said casually, I don't believe in your promises, but you can believe in mine. He paused a little and said calmly, you have no other choice. The man glared at him for a while and suddenly waved dismissively to his underlings, you guys should leave. I will go and play with them for a little while. Your eldest martial brother. The leader in the black outfitted group took a firm step forward. He unexpectedly threw himself on the ground and put out his arms. Take me instead of eldest martial brother. I promise to obey you the whole way. Rest assured, even though I am worth less than my eldest martial brother, we will keep our promise. Shut up. Get the F out of here. Chu Yang's hostage roared angrily, you. Him. Mother Earth. You want to piss me off? After I get back, I will kill your entire family, take your property. Mother Earth. Kill all 9 generations of your relatives. DLN. From great-great-grandfather to great-great-grandchildren. Much more serious than the normal punishment of 3 generations. You dare to speak gibberish in front of me? Get out of here now. Bring those punks with you. Mother Earth is still not going. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get. The man swore, looking at you. Mother S so excited like this. You must be really happy, huh? You're still not leaving? Under his anger and screaming, his underlings reluctantly departed. You listen to me. If you so much as touch a hair on our eldest martial brother, we will mince you to pieces even if it means 9 generations of our family get killed and we have to go to the corner of the earth to hunt you down. The black outfitted person yelled out and walked away. Not long after, they disappeared into the thick forest. Seeing that they had left, an exhausted Chu Yang sat down on the ground. He placed his shaky hand in his chest and held the pure purple jade essence to recover his martial energy. Unexpectedly, there rose an overbearing opposition in his head. Nine Tribulations Sword spirit would not let him do it. Chu Yang sat dumbfounded and cursed internally. You didn't help me when I was fighting earlier, and now you won't let me recover my martial energy. When you were fighting earlier, you did not use the force of Nine Tribulations Sword. Then did you want help in cheering you on? I can only assist you, not take over your body. Whether it is your physical body or your thoughts, the one in control is you, Chu Yang, not Nine Tribulations Sword. This is something you need to be clear on. Now, let's talk about the recovery. When you get to the point of extreme pain and exhaustion, only by using your own effort to recover can you break through and increase your martial energy. You keep depending on this damn jade to get warm winters and cool summers, DLN, basically an easy life. Recover quickly while just sitting there. Break through your head, DLN. Kind of the phrase my ass in English. Chu Yang did not expect Nine Tribulations Sword spirit to completely recover, and he certainly did not expect it to talk to him like this, so he could not help but to be surprised to hear all these things. Pure purple jade essence was a precious treasure, but in the mouth of the sword spirit, it became a useless piece of jade to cool and warm commoners. Once you find out about your origin, the first thing I will do is devour that damn piece of jade. So much energy stored within, but I can only watch. The sword spirit mumbled, and without waiting for a reaction from Chu Yang, it fell back into silence. WTF. Chu Yang's eyes rolled and his mouth was gaping. So this guy has been tempted by the jade the whole time. You can absorb that energy. Since when did I say you couldn't? Chu Yang said inquisitively. Then what will you use to find your parents? Just go all over the world with your bare ass? Nine Tribulations Sword spirit yelled in anger. Afterward, it mumbled, for thousands of years I could not find a suitable host. Now that I found one, it's a brain-dead idiot. Who are you calling an idiot? Chu Yang was furious. Enraged, he yelled loudly. His mouth was foaming. Nine Tribulations Sword in the previous life did not dare talk to him that way. You are only a sword. I might be patience, but I won't put up with this insolence. I did not call you. A confused face and a puzzled voice came to him. Manager Gao, with a concerned face, came closer to Chu Yang. He originally wanted to thank Chu Yang. He did not think that the other person would suddenly open his eyes wide and yell, "Who are you calling an idiot?" Manager Gao was thoroughly shocked. When did I call you that? I didn't even open my mouth yet. Chu Yang felt the atmosphere seemed to have changed. He smiled awkwardly and said, I didn't mean you. Confused, Manager Gao looked around. You weren't talking to me. Besides me, is there anyone else around here? This kid is truly not normal. I have fallen into the hands of a head case. The exhausted hostage said as he lay on the ground. He rolled his eyes and sighed sadly. I dreamt of being a hero, spending my whole life traversing under the heavens and doing great things that will shake heaven and earth. But today I have made the mistake of falling into the hands of this psychotic guy. Such bad luck. You're the psychotic one. Chu Yang answered as he rolled his eyes. Suddenly, he was startled. What? Why does this narcissistic attitude seem so familiar? Have I contracted Dantian's virtue? At this time, the 4 surviving guards approached them. Their martial brothers have died under the hands of this hostage's men, so their gazes were not friendly at all. You guys should move away. I don't want to be disturbed. The hostage roared, bothering me. Do you want to die? He was a hostage, but he was still so arrogant. Du Shiking came out from inside the carriage. His countenance showed that he had calmed down somewhat. He gave Chu Yang a nod. Chu Yang, it's lucky that we have you. He paused a little then said emotionally, if it was not for you, I am afraid I would have left my body here. Regardless of what I have done for you before, we are even now. Du Shiking smiled. You do not have to feel burdened anymore. A doctor's job is to save lives. Therefore there's really no debts to talk about. It's just part of the job. Today, you were the true savior. Chu Yang was suddenly filled with admiration. If Du Shiking could say such words, he was truly worthy of the title Top Divine Doctor. Chu Yang immediately said, Senior Du is too kind. These things were just my own doings. You should not break our prior commitment because of this. Of course not. Du Shiking nodded and smiled. The safety and identity of this person determines our safety. It's important to look at the big picture. The hostage grunted and said, I know you guys wouldn't dare. After he finished, he turned back and looked at Chu Yang with a sharp gaze. Hey, damn kid. There were so many people, why did you only go after me? Chu Yang smiled, because you are the most important. If I caught someone else, would the others retreat? The hostage laughed loudly, revealing a heroic air that could not be covered up by the mask. He asked, What I am most puzzled about is how you knew I am the most important person. This is something I shouldn't tell you, but you seem like a nice enough person. I will break the rule this one time. Chu Yang thought a little, then tilted his head and smiled. It was because your men placed you in a very important position. My men and I eat and drink together. We go into battle together. I always work to serve as a good example for all the soldiers. How can you say I was placed in a special position? What nonsense. Even though you act that way, they do not think that way. Chu Yang said coldly, an army cannot work without a general, but if the general wants to serve as an example for his soldiers in everything, then he becomes an obstacle for that army. In fact, he might be its biggest failure. He looked at the man mockingly. Even though this general thinks he always does a good job, he doesn't know that it is the very thing that will send his army to its doom. The man became pensive. Then what is the perfect middle ground? A leader who always wants to set an example for his soldiers will never become a good leader. However, if he always gives orders and directs from behind, then he would definitely not succeed. There must be a balance. Chu Yang said casually, I have never been a general nor have I led any soldiers. so I don't know where that balance is, nor could I give you any advice." The man was suddenly stunned. His brows raised as he thought carefully. After a long time, he looked up and said sincerely, "I will heed your words." Chu Yang was really interested in this guy he just captured. At first glance, he might seem crude, but he was actually quite shrewd. Moreover, this person was only a martial warrior, but 8 of his underlings were martial masters. Even though it was a difference of just one word, but it was an insurmountable gap. Being able to lead with such low cultivation compared to your own men, it was definitely abnormal. He was honorable. It could be seen that his status in the army was extremely high. There are not likely many such leaders in Iron Cloud Nation. He must live. As he came to this thought, Chu Yang sighed and looked at bodies of the guards on the ground. He then looked at the anguish in the faces of the ones still living. They looked so helpless. Even with the enemy in hands, they could not do anything. Or it could be said this was beyond them. It was now a conflict between 2 countries. However, Chu Yang felt some contempt. Currently, he was an outsider. The 2 countries were of little concerns to him. Du Shi King was a good person, but this journey of his had a direct effect on Chu Yang's efforts to invert fate. Tai Shi Cheng's illness has a definite effect on the fate of Iron Cloud Nation. If Iron Cloud Nation fell, then Beyond the Heavens sect's fate would be dire as well. If Beyond the Heavens sect fell, then his master and martial brothers would also die. Mo King Wu would not be lucky enough to keep her own life either. Du Shi King might be a good person, but Chu Yang could not support him. These assassins were not necessarily bad people. Their path coincided with Chu Yang's. There was no way he could kill these people. However, if Chu Yang placed himself in the shoes of the surviving guards, he would definitely not spare this hostage. He would not pay any mind to promises made or have any scruples with messing up the bigger picture. 4 martial brothers were slain. If you don't take revenge, can you still be a man? But these 4 guards stood in anguish. They did not take any actions even though they were not being restrained. Chu Yang looked down on such gutless people. It was true that this was the promise made to the assassins, but he still looked down on those 4 guys. After looking around, Chu Yang sat cross-legged. Recovering his strength was most important right now. Chu Yang took a deep breath and tried to activate the remaining energy from his Dantian. Strangely enough, his Dantian had been emptied. The only energy that he managed to scrape up was whatever that was left in his meridians. It was so little, it was pathetic. At point, Chu Yang used the path of 9 tribulations transcending the 9 heavens technique for the first time to recover his energy. Since he was no longer in Beyond the Heavens sect, he did not have any reservations. In his previous life, he did practice 9 tribulations transcending the 9 heavens technique. But he did not understand one thing. This technique clearly could help him advance in cultivation level quicker, but what category did it belong to? Good or evil? It was, after all, a very strange technique. When Manager Go saw that Chu Yang was trying to recover his energy, he abandoned the thought of talking to him. Instead, he decided to stay on the side and assist him in the process. However, his eyes suddenly opened wide. He could not believe what he was seeing. Mother Earth, this can't be. He just sat down for such a short amount of time. How could he already enter into his meditative state already? Seeing Chu Yang's seemingly glistening countenance, Manager Gao rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Meditate, clear the mind, gather thoughts, draw energy from the Dantian, and pass it through all the meridians. After many rounds like that, then one can enter the meditative state. That had always been the case. No one was ever exempt. I have been a great master for a few decades, and, even though I have not broken through revered status, can my experience be considered lacking? Until now, Manager Gao had always abided by this set of rules. Plus, after injuries, it would be especially difficult to do those steps. How could this person just set his butt down and immediately enter meditative state? Manager Gao's eyes widened. He suddenly felt that his old beliefs have been shattered. Chu Yang slowly brought the leftover energy in the meridians to his Dantian. After that, he used the paths of 9 tribulations transcending the 9 heavens technique to slowly move energy through meridians all around his body. Unexpectedly, the Nine Tribulations Sword point from inside his Dantian pierced out. It became a sharp force that led the energy like a general leading his troops into battle. All obstacles ahead dissolved into smoke. At the same time, the sword tip emitted an extremely strange force that continuously nourished Chu Yang's meridians. The power of golden bloodroot, which was quietly fortifying his meridians, also suddenly woke up. It joined with the force of Nine Tribulations Sword and became fully integrated into Chu Yang's meridians. After only one round, the sword tip emitted a strong force making Chu Yang's meridians expand and created an extremely exuberant feeling. Outside of his body, Chu Yang clothes did not cease to flutter. A faint black mist seemed to shoot out of his mouth and nose. Chu Yang immediately felt relaxed. Manager Go stood opposite of him with wide eyes and gaping mouth. He was stunned. What did I just see? Oh, God, help me. I must be sick. My eyes must have some issues. This kid just sat down and immediately entered meditative state. But that was not even the half of it. How could he recover after less than one round? Additionally, how could he have a breakthrough in less than the time it take to finish a pot of tea? DLN, 30 minutes, 1 hour. How can this be? This strange phenomenon left the famous fire saber great master completely out of sorts. Chu Yang slowly opened his eyes. A sharp sword aura seemed to flash in his gaze and he returned to normal. The moment he opened his eyes, the hostage and manager Gao, looking at him, immediately felt an extreme pain. It was as if their eyes were pierced with a red-hot needle. The two of them were both fearless men, but, in this moment, in front of Chu Yang, there rose a feeling of terror inside them. It was as if they had come face to face with an ancient demon that was just freed from its seal, bringing with it the force to destroy heaven and earth. Another breakthrough. Martial Warrior Grade 4. If Manager Gao knew that 5 days ago Chu Yang just advanced from Martial Pupil to Martial Warrior Grade 1, his eyes would have probably popped out of their sockets. After that he would probably have high blood pressure and die from a blood clot. You can have a breakthrough like this. I give up. Manager Gao's eyes rolled and his hands couldn't seem to stop shaking. He looked at Chu Yang with a gaze full of jealousy. We're both humans. This was really unfair. Every time I have a breakthrough, it felt as painful as if my skin was being peeled off. As for him, he looked as if he was enjoying the breakthrough. How do you feel? Manager Gao asked. His head felt like it was on fire. I only broke through 1 grade. Chu Yang frowned. How can it be so slow? This can't be right. Manager Go staggered. His body shook. When was your last breakthrough? He thought to himself. Perhaps this guy was caught in a bottleneck for many years. If that was the case, then it would make some sense. Chu Yang scratched his head, rolled his eyes, and answered with some uncertainty, maybe 4 or 5 days ago. The time span is a little too long this time, that's why I thought it was a little strange. Manager Gao's eyes widened and his lips trembled as he shakily pointed his finger at Chu Yang. Then he suddenly sat on the ground. His face became swollen and red in an abnormal manner. It was as if all of his blood had rushed to his head. A while later, still dizzy, he stood up. With a pale face, he turned and walked away. His gait somewhat wobbly. Chu Yang asked in surprise, Manager Gao, are you okay? Manager Go seemed to be in a dream state as he muttered, I am going to sleep. I have not slept for a few days, that's why I am hallucinating. The masked man shook his head and exclaimed sincerely, before, at Iron Cloud Citadel, I have seen punks acting as if they were loaded by treating money like dirt. Their attitude was deserving of a good beating. I thought they were acting, but today, I have seen what real acting is. With your ability, those punks should be bowing to you and calling you great master. Chu Yang remained silent. I was just telling the truth. I remembered, in my previous lifetime, I did not just break through 1 grade but multiple grades at the speed of a flying arrow. But this breakthrough felt decidedly different. Cultivation is about quality. Going slowly and firmly is the ultimate way. You must take step by step, understanding and retaining each step. In your previous life, did you enjoy soaring on a pig like that, you fool? If it were not for me helping you, you would have been done in a long time ago. Do you know why you could not reach the pinnacle in your previous life? It was exactly because you missed this period of step-by-step insight. If you want to take everything in one big bite, you will end up choking to death. Do you understand, idiot? An arrogant voice rang in his head. Chu Yang suddenly understood everything. It was true, cultivation in martial arts was the same as maturing in life. From youth to adulthood, you have to learn and understand slowly with time. That was the right way. If there was an elixir to make a newborn become a 30-year-old, would he be able to truly have the mind of a 30-year-old? No wonder even the most powerful could only advance one step at a time. So Nine Tribulations Sword wanted to hold me back so that I can fully comprehend everything with time. You are now only but the ink drop, DLN, insignificant, compared to a book such as TTNH. Why not try to find some supplements? If you keep going at turtle pace, when will you be great? Supplements? Chu Yang was puzzled. What supplements? Such as 7-star white magnolia, 9-leaf spirit root, purple air spirit star. Those can all be used. There's more. You can also use purple crystal jade, legendary gold iron, star steel, nightmare silver, and diamond sand. 18,000 pounds of each should be enough. Chu Yang's arms and legs trembled and he stumbled to the ground. Unable to control himself, he cursed, Mother Earth. What do you think those things are? Vegetables? They are all legendary herbs. Being able to find 0.1 pound is already fortunate. You want 18,000 pounds? Are you delirious? Even though manager Go and Dushi King was already a distance away, when they hear Chu Yang roared in anger like that, they both turned around. The hostage facing Chu Yang, cried in rage, insolent. I want to eat a few pounds of beef. Do you know how hungry I am? You, Mother Earth, this is how you are going to treat a prisoner like me? Insolent. What legendary herbs? In your family, is beef considered legendary? I have never met such country bumpkin. So it turned out that guy was hungry, and he was giving Chu Yang his requests. Chu Yang tilted his head, grinned his teeth, and yelled angrily, shut up. I will strip you and feed the horses aphrodisiac. A moment after, Chu Yang's eyes flashed fiercely. The words Chu Yang said left the man shaking. On his pale face, his mouth opened in despair. He was furious on the inside, but did not dare show any of it. At this point, he finally understood that he had fallen into the hands of a rogue. Those words he just said, can a normal person say such things? These things are needed for when Nine Tribulations Sword levels up. The voice laughed heartily in Chu Yang's consciousness. Little brat, let me tell you a piece of good news. So before you open the Nine Tribulations Sword into space, you will also get a little surprise. You are truly useless after such a long time, and you have yet to discover the vast abilities of Nine Tribulations Sword. Nine Tribulations Sword into space? Chu Yang was surprised. Exactly, Nine Tribulations Sword into space. Wait, then you are not a sword spirit? Chu Yang asked. DLN, I assume Chu Yang asked this because the sword spirit should have access to the sword into space. Yes, I am Nine Tribulations Sword. But currently, I cannot be one with Nine Tribulations Sword. The voice was full of sorrow. Damn bastard. Having to find a sword master was bad enough. Why did he have to separate the spirit from the sword? Damn. Who? Chu Yang felt his heart beat rapidly. Was the sword spirit cursing the mysterious person who created Nine Tribulations Sword? I have forgotten who he was. The voice sighed and said, only when you get all 9 sword fragments, then sword and spirit can become one. When you get all 9 fragments, then I can fully recover. You must patiently search. Those things are not hard to find. There are a lot in this world. But what if I am not lucky enough to find them? Chu Yang asked meekly. Nine Tribulations Sword cannot be destroyed. Just take your time and search, even if it takes 18,000 years. After finishing this, the sword spirit did not make another sound. 18,000 years. Chu felt his head spinning and his eyes were seeing spots. The recovery of Nine Tribulations Swords might seem easy at first glance, but it has been thousands of years, boss. Perhaps it was really easy back then. Those things might have been everywhere. However, do you know it's extremely difficult now? Is this any different from a death sentence? Hey, I want to eat. The hostage yelled, but this time, a little softer. Even prisoners have to eat. You're not going to let me starve, are you? I'm hungry. Shut up. Chu Yang was really unhappy. He suddenly grabbed the hostage's shirt and roared ferociously, "Don't think that I am afraid to kill you. I didn't kill you because you are still of some use. But if you make me lose my patience, then cutting your head off would not be a difficult thing. Don't think that I'm afraid to die." The man yelled angrily, but when he saw the darkness in Chu Yang's eyes, he shuddered and did not say anything else. Oh God, this person is really a demon. As the saying goes, a wise man knows when to retreat. Chu Yang stood up and went toward the bonfire. He conveniently chopped off a dead horse's hind leg, pierced it with 2 arrows from the ground and placed it on the bonfire to roast. The flickering firelight shone on Chu Yang's face, making it look strangely light and dark at the same time. Plump. Chu Yang tossed the roasted horse leg in front of the masked man and yelled, "Eat. Horse meat is too sour. I want beef." The man responded angrily, "You want beef? You look like beef." Chu Yang mocked, "Eat or not, it's up to you." With that, he turned and left. The man looked like he was trying to swallow down a clump of anger that was stuck in his throat. He looked at the piece of horse meat in his hand and wanted to throw it away, but he knew that if he threw it away then he would starve. The other guy would never relent. He sighed and mercilessly bit into the horse leg. Then he chewed ferociously, so the gnashing sounds of his teeth grinding could be heard. It was as if it was not horse meat he was chewing, but Chu Yang. On the other side, Chu Yang was clearing the arrows on the ground. He wanted to have a clear area to set up his tent and get a good night's sleep. However, after clearing a few arrows, Chu Yang's face, which was turned away from other people, suddenly morphed into a strange look. Afterward, he immediately took out his tent and stopped clearing the arrows on the ground. In fact, he chose an area with the most arrows on the ground to put up his tent. This made everyone very astonished. Inside the tent, Chu Yang was terrified beyond belief. He had discovered that as he was clearing the arrows, Nine Tribulations Sword point inside him suddenly reacted sharply. At that moment, the sword point followed his meridians and went straight to his hand. The instant it came in contact with the arrows, there was a tiny popped sound. The arrows in his hand were broken into tiny pieces. Yes, broken into tiny pieces. Or, more accurately, immediately turned into dust. These arrows were made of fine steel. This type of arrow was very lethal and they also could be shot over long distances. This was because half of it was made of fine steel, and the end half was made of the finest iron wood. That was how the arrows maintained their balance. Under Chu Yang's contact, these fine steel arrows got silently obliterated. How could he not be surprised? After he finished setting up the tent, Chu Yang crawled in. He looked at the ground crowded with arrows, and widened his eyes as he gently touched one with his finger. DLN, no flaw in this tent. This is Jiang people. Sure enough, Nine Tribulations Sword point ran to his finger and suddenly emitted a strong pull. There immediately appeared on Chu Yang's fingertip a bit of dark iron. The rest of the fine steel on the arrow turned into dust. What has happened? I never heard anything about Nine Tribulations Sword doing this. Chu Yang's eyes widened with surprise. When all of the fine steel arrows in the tent had become dust, the dark iron scraps in Chu Yang's hand had become a ball the size of a fingertip. After exercising his internal vision, he also discovered that Nine Tribulations Sword point, which was shining brightly, now had a tiny spot that had turned black. It was so small that it could easily be missed if not looked at carefully. How could this be? Chu Yang asked himself. That is pure iron. Nine Tribulations Sword swallowed iron essence. That lazy voice from his Dantian rang out once again. What's so strange about that, huh? Pure iron essence? Nine Tribulations Sword is the world's top divine item. There is nothing it cannot swallow, even the human body. That voice explained, but what Nine Tribulations Sword swallows is the finest part, the essence. With this fine steel, it is iron essence. What's left behind afterward is pure iron. Even though it is not as good, compared to normal metal, it is already the essence of essences. The voice continued, this is also a benefit for the Nine Tribulations Sword Master. It paused a little. One of the benefits. One of the benefits? Chu Yang's head was spinning. Could it be that there are lots of other benefits? Chu Yang's eyes brightened momentarily. Yes, anything that falls into your hands. Nine Tribulations Sword can automatically extract its essence. The part Nine Tribulations Sword doesn't need will be left to your disposal after it is purified. Once Nine Tribulations Sword is completely restored, all those benefits will be yours. Only, this is a long time from now, you don't need to know yet. I see. Chu Yang held a tiny pure iron in his hand and seemed to be thinking about something. Everything can be swallowed. Of course, there are nothing under the heavens that cannot be swallowed, including the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. But for now, there's only the first fragment of Nine Tribulations Sword, so only some metals and medicinal herbs can be swallowed. Then, can this pure iron be used to create weapons? Gibberish. You only need to have enough. Then you can control the sword point to help you make any weapon you want. This pure iron is already a treasure that martial artists in this world can only dream of. Do you know that? Using pure iron to create weapon, compared to the trash that you people use, it already stronger by a few dozen times. Chu Yang sat on the ground and thought. At this moment, he suddenly had a clear plan. Going into Cloud Nation through Du Shi King was only an impromptu decision. Before this, he did not have any plans. He was just taking it one step at a time. But at this moment, he suddenly had a comprehensive plan. The plan should be like that. The heavy chunk of pure iron in his hand seemed to have given him an idea, making his eyes suddenly light up. The next few days were calm. The assassins unhurriedly followed behind them at times and parallel to them at others. They were all unhappy, but could not do anything. Their original plan was to kill, but now they were more like bodyguards. This army of about 100 was always disciplined and orderly. No matter what locality they were in, there was never any chaos. They were quiet on the road. No one said anything to each other. This army was more like a black flood that quietly follows you. Seeing this elite team, Chu Yang could not help but think to himself, you don't really need much. All of Cloud Nation only needs 10,000 soldiers like these. No, you don't even need 10,000. Only 3 or 5,000 would be enough to sweep over the world. Following Chu Yang's gaze, the masked hostage by his side laughed and said proudly, these, my martial brothers are not bad, right? In this group, because of his special status, even Manager Gao and Du Shi King dared not show any disrespect toward him. Only Chu Yang treated him unceremoniously. However, he knew it was safest for him to stay close to Chu Yang, so even though talking with Chu Yang made him furious at times, he absolutely would not separate and go with someone else in the group. He believed that even though Chu Yang was rude toward him, he was the only one that did not want him dead. As for the others, they might be very courteous toward him, but they all wanted to kill him. 1,000 to 1 chance that they will stab me once they get to a safe place. This was definitely a possibility, but only Chu Yang will not do something like that. Good soldiers, Chu Yang said in a low voice as his eyes glanced in the direction of people and horses that were moving like a black flood. Of course they are good soldiers. The man said proudly, otherwise, how could they guard the Roy? Mother Earth, how dare you set me up? Chu Yang quietly rolled his eyes and explained himself sincerely, you think I am so low as to try to get you to talk? He shook his head in disdain and said, if I want to know anything from you, I only need some aphrodisiac, then there's nothing I can't find out. The man immediately shuddered. With his mouth gaping, he looked at the youth as if he was looking at an animal and decided it was wise not to say anything else. This was because he suddenly remembered what Chu Yang said the other day, I will strip you and feed the horses aphrodisiac. Thinking it over, his hair still stood on end. If that was the case, he surely would not have the ability to resist to such thing. Finally, one morning, the group finally saw large city walls far ahead of them. Du Shi King and Manager Go simultaneously let out a sigh of relief. At last they had arrived in the outskirts of Cloud Nation. There were small towns all around, and government offices here and there. There should no longer be the risk of an assassination, because if Du Shi King was assassinated at this place, Taibu Tan would be furious. All the officials here would probably not be well off either. Therefore, everyone would treat Du Shi King as if he was their grandfather. Sure enough, The citadel's gate was full of fluttering flags. A group of soldiers were coming from the citadel, obviously to welcome Du King. The group of 100 still walking on the side simultaneously turned their heads and looked. Manager Go suddenly turned his head as well, revealing a deadly look in his eyes. If he killed the hostage here, then those 100 people would probably have no way to prevent it. The atmosphere between two sides became strangely tense. "You should release me," the hostage said, seeing Manager Gao's ill intent. Before he could finish his sentence, Chu Yang grabbed the fabric that was restraining him and lifted. He flew off with the 200 pounds hostage. Manager Gao was one step too slow. He could not help but stared at Chu Yang and yelled angrily, "You!" There was sudden a whoosh. The hostage's form flew out by 7 or 8 meters. A whistle was heard and a horse sped forward. Their warrior on the horse raised his arms and caught the man. Then the horse immediately bolted. That man only swung his legs and he was safely sitting on the horse's back. The 100 black outfits in masks cheered in unison. Suddenly, the man yelled out an order, and the 100 people simultaneously halted their horses. After that, they went in a circle around Du King's group. Behind each mask was a pair of eyes filled with killing aura, enough to give people the chills. After they made a full circle, the man laughed and yelled, "You little bastard, we will see each other again. At that time, I will strip you and feed the horses aphrodisiac." He yelled triumphantly as if his being a hostage was not a shameful thing but a glorious achievement. Chu Yang was a little surprised. With the thickness of this guy's skin, he felt a little humbled. "Let's go." After that, the man's eyes narrowed and glared in a challenging manner at Manager Gao's people. With a wave, he turned his horse and sped off leading his men. Their warriors behind him followed close behind him, forming a black river on the road. The group galloped toward the horizon, leaving a large cloud of yellow dust. In a distance, the man's laugh rang out. "Mother Earth, have you children prepared good wine for me? I have suffered under the abuse of that ruthless guy. These past few days, I couldn't remove my mask, my face is probably as white as those weak rich boys." There was a burst of laughter followed by non-stop whistling and yelling. It was chaotic. Clearly, from top to bottom, the group did not see this capture as a disgrace. They did not seem to really mind the fact that they were not able to kill Du King either. It seemed that man's safe return was the most important thing in the world. The fact that the task was not completed, they did not care. "Why did you let him go?" Manager Gao raised his head and looked at Chu Yang. "You cannot walk the Jianghu if you do not keep your words." Chu Yang answered coldly without any compromise. "Besides, I Senior Du and I came to escort him. I have nothing to do with you." Chu Yang said slowly with a little disdain, "If you people were daring enough to kill him right when I caught him, then I would have nothing to say. In fact, I would have even praised you for having great loyalty. Worst case scenario, everyone will become fugitives together. But you waited until you knew you were safe to take revenge. Ha ha ha." Manager Gao, the title Fire Saber Great Master did not come from that kind of action, right? Hearing him said that, the 4 surviving guards' faces and ears became red, and could not say a word. Manager Go slowly nodded his head and said good, good, good. The word good was repeated 3 times. His countenance became more and more serious. Chu Yang grunted coldly and said arrogantly, "So, did you intended to do away with your savior after you crossed the bridge?" He currently only cared about his target. As for people like these, he did not care for. Gao Weicheng was surprised. He glared at him for a while and finally turned and walked away. In the back, Du King sighed and said, "Old Gao, what Chu Yang did was not wrong. A man should keep his word." Manager Gao was a distance away. His hunched body paused for a moment and turned around. "Yes, sire, your teaching is true." All of a sudden, Chu Yang was greatly surprised. This was the first time he had seen Manager Gao talk to Du King. He did not expect Manager Gao to treat Du King with such respect. This level of respect was that of servant and master. Manager Gao was famed as Fire Saber Great Master. This was a little unusual. Chu Yang's face now showed a pretense of anger, but in his mind, he cannot stop asking himself, could it be that Du King? There is something else special about him. After 2 additional days, they finally arrived at Iron Cloud Citadel. In the little towns along the way, Du King was greeted with enthusiastic receptions. However, the attitude of manager Gao and his people toward Chu Yang became colder by the day. It got to the point where they just detested him. At this time, Chu Yang was all alone like a stray wolf. Chu Yang was generally indifferent to all of this. He spent every day discussing with Du King about various medical issues. This was unexpectedly very interesting to him. Chu Yang was very savvy, and in some instances he also gave some new ideas, making Du King feel very enjoyable as well. Therefore, the two were never bored with their discussions. Chu Yang used this opportunity to brush up on medical knowledge that he did not understand in his past life. Whether it was in battle or wandering in Jianghu, life-saving knowledge was always useful. Du King's journey was basically reported back to Iron Cloud Citadel 3 times a day. It was even said that the Prince of Iron Cloud, Tan, even wanted to welcome Du King into the city himself. This type of privilege was definitely grand. The distance to Iron Cloud Citadel was 10 miles away. On top of Iron Cloud Citadel, flags were fluttering. Suddenly, a group of well-dressed soldiers came of the gate and stood orderly on two sides. Their lines stretched out for about 2 miles. After that, a group of riders advanced out in the middle of the two lines of soldiers. After more than 3 miles out, the riders stopped. The group separated, creating an open space. A youth in a white robe astonishingly appeared. His clothes was completely white. He rode on a white horse. It was as if, in front of the citadel, there was a snow-white flower blooming. A snow-white ice sculpture, precious as jade, and valiant in appearance. DLN, I don't know why they describe guys this way greater than. This youth in white wore a purple jade crown. His face was white, his long brows touched his hairline, and his phoenix eyes showed great grandeur. A white robe covered his whole body. At first glance, he looked like a white snowflower, very delicate and scholarly. But the person facing him got an impression that was completely different from that appearance. He simply sat on the horse's back, but gave the feeling that he was overlooking the whole world. Prince of Iron Cloud, Tan himself, came out to welcome Du King. At this moment, he was sitting with his right hand gently placed on top of his left. His eyes squinted as he was looking ahead, waiting patiently with a calm countenance. From a distance, dust rose up along with the gentle rumbling sound of rolling wheels. A group of people appeared on the horizon. "They're here," Tan said, and immediately got off his horse. His robe still covered his body just like before. He was not tall, but never gave the impression that he was small in stature. At his side were dozens of people standing vigilant with light flashing in their gazes. Their hands were on the hilts of their swords, covering and protecting Tan in all directions. With such a formation, even if a martial emperor attacked, they could still keep Tan safe and sound. At this moment, Du King was stunned. "Senior Du, you have arrived safely at Iron Cloud. I should say goodbye." Chu Yang feigned a ceremonious farewell. He was like a warrior who just finished his mission. Ah? Du King really did not expect that Chu Yang would bid farewell at this moment. Could it be that he only wanted to escort me on this journey? Only a simple repayment, and nothing else? Manager Gao and the 4 guards were also caught by surprise and raised their heads to look at Chu Yang. Chu Yang gave Du King a determined glance and, without waiting for Du King to say any words to hold him back, he turned and walked away. His lone figure seemed to be lightened, as if an important burden was lifted. Looking at his back, they all suddenly felt shameful for misunderstanding him. He appeared suddenly and journeyed with them for hundreds of miles. If it were not for him, then this group would not have survived to arrive at Iron Cloud. If it were not for him, then this group would have been annihilated at the thick forest. But at this hour of success, he decided to leave. In fact, just 2 days ago, this group almost got into a fight with him. What ungrateful behavior. Chu Yang leaving like this left Du King with a deep impression of a selfless hero. Everyone looked at the lone figure as it slowly became a small black dot in front of them. Afterward, it disappeared. They could not help but be a little dumbfounded. Chu Yang came because he wanted to repay an old debt. This much was verified. However, in everyone's mind, Chu Yang should still have another intention, using Du King to get into the eyes of the upper crust of Iron Cloud to win wealth and fame. This was really his main purpose, right? However, at this moment, Chu Yang's action broke all of their expectations and made them feel that they have used a small person's heart to measure a good person's intentions. DLN, you probably know it. But just in case, a person with dark heart thinks everyone is like them. Extremely shameful. What they did not know was that Chu Yang departed at just the right time to start his plan. Manager Gao's group did not even have one bit of suspicion toward him. Chu Yang knew that if he followed Du Shiking into the citadel, he would conveniently meet Tai Butan. However, his status would not be good. At best, he would be one of Tai Butan's aides. Then he would have to work hard to once again to find or wait for another opportunity to emerge slowly, step by step. But who knows when the right opportunity would come along, and Chu Yang could not afford to wait. What could easily be obtained would naturally not be cherished. The words applied to men and women. They also applied to love as well as wealth and career. A wife was not comparable to a concubine was not comparable to a lover, and a lover was not comparable to an unrequited love. What cannot be obtained was always the best. Ha. Chu Yang understood this too well. In truth, this was not without reason. If Chu Yang initiated contact, then his importance would never be one that Tai Butan had to invite time and time again. His worth in the prince's eyes would be completely different. Therefore, Chu Yang was currently putting himself in an advantageous position, and creating an opportunity where Tai Butan would have to invite him 3 times before he comes. Originally, when there was no other way, Chu Yang could only use Du Shiking. Now that he had 9 Tribulation Sword's devouring ability, TLN, it's really absorption, but the author used terms that mean bite, swallow, devour, sounds more ferocious. He immediately changed his plan. Now that there were other paths, Chu Yang would absolutely not be content with just being an insignificant aide. As for Du Shiking, Chu Yang had put all his efforts into leaving a deep impression. The utility of this would definitely not be wasted. At the least, Tai Butan only needed to mention his name with Du Shiking. With these impressions, Du Shiking would have some effect on Tai Butan's decision. DLN, don't be confused. Basically he wanted Tai Butan to bring up his name with the Du Shiking, who of course will only have good things to say about Chu Yang. If Tai Butan asks about him first instead of the doctor bringing up his name, Chu Yang would have more value to Tai Butan. With the current situation, what Chu Yang needed to do right away was to get Tai Butan's attention. Let Tai Butan ask about him, then he would be the one that took the initiative and Chu Yang would just be the reluctant party. He only needed Tai Butan to have a little impression of him, then his plans can move forward like a horse soaring through the air. Succeeding in one step was a challenge, but doing something strange to attract Tai Butan's attention, that was his specialty. Tai Butan's group gathered to wait about 3 miles outside of Ironcloud Citadel. When they saw Du Shiking's carriage appeared in the distance, they were finally relieved. However, they were suddenly stunned. A figure separated from Du Shiking's group and rapidly approached their direction like a bolt of lightning. No, it was heading in the direction of the citadel. From a distance, it came closer and closer. The time that it took that black spot to turn into a small silhouette of a person to a clear figure to a black bolt of lightning was extremely fast. So fast. One of the valiant-looking men next to Tai Butan blinked and could not help but praised. Though the others did not speak, they felt the same way. This figure was not riding a horse, but was on foot. The speed he was approaching with was extremely fast. In a blink of an eye, he was no longer far from them. When he got a little closer, all of the martial art experts around Tai Butan suddenly got an unsettling feeling, because at this moment, the fast-moving silhouette was suddenly moving by them. He lifted his head and looked over in the direction of Tai Butan. The 2 gazes were like heavenly swords that cut through the dark sky and met. The dozen of martial experts around Tai Butan suddenly felt the moment the pair of eyes felt on them that they were completely exposed. It was as if they were stripped and tossed into an icy field of wind and snow. All of a sudden, a cold like 1,000 miles of icy wind swept from the man's direction. That cold seemed like it could engulf the whole world with ice. It was like a calm sea that was suddenly hit with monstrous waves. An absolute calm turned into earth-shattering agitation in a blink of an eye. This sharp contrast made everyone unable to react in time, especially the guards around Tai Butan, who had heightened senses and were always alert. There were martial experts on both sides. The air was filled with tension. However, that person seemed to suddenly sense that something was wrong and immediately took back the cold air. This ability to freely release and take back shocked everyone to the core. At this time, the gazes of that person and Ch.51 were directly on each other. Ch.51 had unexpectedly turned around and looked. Their eyes seemed to have met each other by accident, but they were both shocked. This seemingly casual gaze was actually deliberate on both sides. Moreover, both parties only knew that theirs was intentional. Ch.51's gaze was preceded by his activation of Emperor Saintly technique. It brought with it the type of pressure from one of the ultimate position of power. That was paired with icy heart jade bone saintly technique that he cultivated since his childhood. From one glance, Ch.51 was able to perceive one thing from the other person's speed, momentum, and gaze. The person in front of him was an extremely dangerous character. If that person was a friend, he would be of great help. If that person was an enemy, he would be a formidable one. Separated by more than 10 yards, two people and four eyes faced each other. In their mind, there suddenly rose a subtle feeling as if they should never have met each other. This impossible encounter of friend or foe that should never have been now suddenly meet in this chaos of space and time. Chu Yang was very aware of this feeling. At this moment, in front of his eyes, it seemed as if time and space was grounded and mixed. The two different worlds of previous life and this suddenly mixed together. This was an extremely mysterious feeling. A meeting completely outside of fate. DLN, here's something specially drawn for David. It's even worse than before. Drew it 1 minute, hope you like it. On the outside, Ch.51's gaze looked ordinary, but it was actually created by the combination of Emperor Saintly technique and Icy Heart Jade Bone Saintly technique. He wanted the other person's first impression to be that of invincibility, and the feeling that this person was a heavenly born king. He only needed to seed such feelings, then it would be of great help when he solicits this person in the future. Later, cooperation with this person would have a greater chance of going smoothly. At this moment, Ch.51 naturally thought that the other person was simply passing by, that he was unprotected against such a gaze. In fact, whether it was in conflict or just simple conversations, people usually paid attention to the eyes of the other person. But who would think that a gaze could have such an effect? And Chu Yang's gaze was even more deliberate. For this gaze, he even brought out all of the cold energy from Seven Shades congregation grounds in the Nine Tribulations Sword point to create an icy atmosphere like a 1,000-mile wide field of ice and snow. This gave him an advantage in his aura beforehand. Then he gathered all of the thoughts and determinations from his heart for this gaze. This one gaze must give a lasting impression on Ch.51. Chu Yang's gaze was sharp, arrogant, and wild like the king of the wolves in northern grassland, sharp like sword and cold as ice. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness. Under this gaze, the living things in the world were like ants to be killed without a care. All of 9 heavens were no more than grass to be trampled. However, Ch.51's gaze was a peaceful, warm and calm like the quiet surface of a pond. Like an ocean accepting thousands of tributaries, limitless domination. Or it could also be said that he was condescendingly watching over the people from the clouds up high with a regal gaze that got scattered by the wind to the people below. I am the emperor. All under the heaven belongs to me. It is only natural that all shall bow to me. One side was intentional, one side inadvertent but also intentional. Without prearrangement, they have collided with full force. This was a duel of power. But this duel had no outcome. If Chu Yang's gaze was the ocean's waves, then Ch.51's was the rocks. The waves rolled and did not cease to push forth. The rocks stood and remained unmoved. In the end, would the rocks break the waves, or would the waves cover the rocks? How could it be clearly determined who will win and who will lose? However, that one gaze of Chu Yang was like a strong cold wind blown from all directions on Ch.51's droop. With a swoosh, he became an illusion that disappeared at the citadel's gate. From beginning to end, Chu Yang's gaze never changed. Ch.51's gaze slowly recovered, as he seemed to think about something. It was as if it was just a coincidental encounter, a very brief one. In fact, to the people with Ch.51, this was just a chanced meeting. That was really a scary person. Behind Ch.51, More than a dozen martial experts with their martial energy activated finally breathed a sigh of relief. Their faces serious. For some, there were even a few drops of cold sweat on their noses. There were some loud pops at their feet. Some people did not manage to control their energy well, so their sudden release of martial energy caused the earth beneath their feet to burst. A moment ago, they felt as if they were tossed into a field of ice and snow, chilling their bodies. Although the person just flew by and there were no actions taken against them, everyone fell into a state of fear as if a sharp sword dripped through the air with intentions to kill with indomitable power that cannot be stopped. Really scary? How scary? Ch.51 slowly asked as he looked thoughtfully in the direction Chu Yang just went. This person, based on his momentum and his eyes, it could be presumed that he must be the world's leading killer. A person in blue next to Ch.51 took a deep breath and continued in a judicious tone, "At least, this person's target was not you, Prince." Because when he looked at you there was not one bit of killing intent in his eyes. Only indifference. When he said this, more than a dozen people around immediately thought, facing the prince of a country, facing this grand ceremony and being so dismissive. His resolve and determination was beyond doubt. This group of martial experts could not think of anyone in Jianghu like this. This person was clearly very young, at most 17 or 18 years old. Of all the talented youths in Jianghu, they could not seem to find one that matched him. Who was this person? Oh? There appeared a faint smile on Ch.51's white jade-like face. He said gently, "A scary person, how truly interesting." He did not see me as a target. Then it is very likely that he is not an enemy. And if he is not an enemy, then he could not possibly be a friend. He turned around and looked at Dushi King's carriage. Ch.51 mused. Did it seem like that person just split up from Physician Du's earlier? Before that there was no signs of him. Then it must be that he was part of Dushi King's group, right? Everyone turned and looked at each other. They could not help but nodded. This was very obvious. Such a martial expert was part of Dushi King's group. Then Dushi King must know this person very well. Ch.51 calmly spoke, and this person was heading into An Cloud Citadel. His eyes brightened as he laughed and said, "How could we let go of such talent? Quickly send 2 people and see if they could catch up to him. Regardless of whatever might happen, no one is allowed to get into an altercation with him." 2 men behind him nodded and split from their ranks, whipped their horses and rode at top speed. With sounds of hooves thundering, within seconds, they disappeared at the citadel gate. Without turning around, Ch.51 slightly waved his sleeve and said, "Follow me to welcome Divine Physician Du." Chu Yang faced Ch.51 for only a moment before leaving like a whirlwind, but by the time he entered the citadel the tremor in his heart still did not subside and he still had not managed to calm down. How could it be? Chu Yang's mind was full of doubts. How could it be Icy Heart Jade Bone Saintly Technique? How could he know Icy Heart Jade Bone Saintly Technique? It is not strange that he knows Emperor Saintly Technique. It belongs to Iron Cloud Nation's royal family and has been passed down for generations. But he clearly used Icy Heart Jade Bone Saintly Technique as well. Why? Icy Heart Jade Bone Saintly Technique belonged to the Divine Clan. Moreover, it has very special requirements for cultivation. Either very feminine men can cultivate or, for maximum effect, virgin maidens. For masculine men to cultivate this Icy Heart Jade Bone Saintly Technique, they would probably not achieve anything from it in their entire lifetime. What Chu Yang found strangest was, based on the powerful position of Prince Ch.51, he could cultivate any technique. Why did he have to cultivate Icy Heart Jade Bone Saintly Technique? Regardless, this Prince Ch.51 of Iron Cloud Nation had also left a deep impression on Chu Yang, especially those eyes, clear as water, cold as ice, but calm and peaceful, benevolent, unimaginably deep. But Chu Yang's deepest impression was, these beautiful eyes almost seemed like they did not belong in the human world. When his thoughts reached this point, Chu Yang could not help but laugh. This prince seemed valiant, but perhaps too handsome, so much so that he almost seemed like a sissy. An example of white-face wealthy young master. DLN, pale young master, rich heirs who have pasty skin from being too sheltered, The fact that he cultivated icy heart jade bone saintly technique was actually not all that surprising now that he thought it over. Du Shiking's carriage finally appeared in front of everyone. Manager Gao lifted the curtain, and Du Shiking slowly stepped out. Tai Butan took one step forward, and bowed deeply. Senior Du had a long and rough journey. I, Tai Butan, welcome you to Iron Cloud Citadel. His voice was cool and bright with a degree of calmness. Moreover, in front of Du Shiking, he actually used I, casual, instead of I, royal. Showing how he valued Du Shiking. From this, it could be seen how this Prince of Iron Cloud cared about his father's illness. His royal prince is too kind. This old man is not so talented that your majesty has to come all the way here to greet me. I am too fearful to receive such kindness. Du Shiking hurriedly paid his respect, his face showing a little excitement. You do not need to be modest. You only need to treat my father's condition, then you will be a great benefactor of all of Iron Cloud Nation. Whatever privilege is still just ordinary. Tai Butan smiled and politely stretched out his arm. Senior Du, this way please. Du Shiking said, Your Majesty, please lead the way. Then he turned around, heading towards his carriage amidst cheers of the people at the Citadel's gate. DLN, I made an edit here because of a tense issue. It was progressive not past. The following sentence makes more sense now greater than underscore. Senior Du, there is something I wish to learn from you. Tai Butan smiled and said, Earlier, I saw a person from your group moved as if he was flying. His speed was extremely fast. Was that person part of Senior Du's group? Oh, you can say that person is a child of my old friend. Speaking of this person, it cannot be left unsaid that he is really a good person. He is judicious, loyal and filial. He is also courageous, prudent and skilled in martial art. Even though he is still young, he truly a noble man. Du Shiking sadly shook his head, and brought up Chu Yang's history once again. He was especially emphatic about the ambush, and finally concluded with a sigh, if he were not there, then I am afraid I would not have been able to see you today. Moreover, this person is incredibly talented. He is thorough, never forgets, and full of wisdom. He could be called a hero of our day. Du Shiking's voice was full of respect for Chu Yang. He truly spared no effort in advertisement. Plus his tone was clearly sincere and heartfelt. If Chu Yang had remained with him up to this point, then the result would probably not be like this. Du Shiking also has a touch of regret. On the way, he had more than once brought up the idea of taking Chu Yang as his student to teach him about medicine. In fact, when they were almost to their destination, Du Shiking poured out his heart. Chu Yang, I feel as if this journey to Iron Cloud would be the last for me. If you still do not accept my proposal, I am afraid all of my medical knowledge will be lost. With this much sincerity, and yet Chu Yang still refused. Du Shiking sighed dejectedly. Even though he had no hope of having Chu Yang as a student, he still decided to give him his immortal medicine, his life's work, as well as an incomplete medicinal herbs Bible. This medicinal herbs Bible was created using my medical knowledge. At this point in my life, I am still not able to fully understand more than 50% of the medicinal herbs in existence. As for immortal medicine, this is my life's work. If you are willing to learn from it, then good. Otherwise, please help me pass it on to the later generations. Du Shiking seemed to have entrusted Chu Yang with this. These two books became Chu Yang's biggest unexpected gains during this trip. In Du Shiking's mind, even though Chu Yang did not become his pupil, he still essentially passed down all of his medical knowledge to him. With his superb impression of Chu Yang, he would naturally give his all. Beside him, Manager Go snorted. He thought that if Chu Yang did really intend to leave them, then he would not have entered Iron Cloud Citadel. However, because he was currently a little sorry toward Chu Yang for misunderstanding him, he felt guilty and did not voice any objections. Anyway, that youth's disdain for wealth and fame did not seem fake. Senior Du is truly benevolent. The world is covered with your good deeds. After hearing this, my respect for you has increased by 1 part. Tai Butan smiled and said, but his eyes brightened as he secretly noted these 2 words Chu Yang. Currently, It could be said that Iron Cloud Nation was desperate for good people. If it were not for Prince Ch.51 managing Iron Cloud Nation's military and creating Bhutan Pavilion to greatly strengthen the country's power, then Daewoo King Ru would have sent his army north already. For Ch.51, he could not afford to let any talent go at this point, let alone a scary talent like this. Ch.51's countenance immediately became cold, and said quietly to the person in blue besides him, "Send orders for Wu Qiangyun to come to Iron Cloud Citadel. Tell him that if he cannot give me a clear explanation as to why Physician Du was ambushed, then his body need not come, his head would be enough." Wu Qiangyun, the great commander of Iron Cloud Nation, was also in charge of the southwest Iron Cloud territory bordering Great Zhao. He was ranked 10th amongst the commanders of the continent. While he only ranked last in this list of the top 10 great commanders, this was not an honor that could be achieved with just simple bravery. The fact that Ch.51 had brought up Wu Qiangyun's name at this moment naturally meant that he had concluded, based on the timing and tactics of the ambush, it was without a doubt Wu Qiangyun's doing. The person in blue concurred, but the edge of his mouth could not help but twitch as he thought to himself, "Oh, old Wu, you are in such bad luck now." Although, I also wanted to do what you did. Turning back, Ch.51's smiling face was friendly and calm. Senior Du must have been frightened. Du Shiking continually said he dared not. Somehow, when he looked at Ch.51's congenial and warm face, he felt a chill down his spine. It was as if that guilty act committed against his medical ethics years ago was placed under the eyes of the person in front of him. Perhaps, could Iron Cloud Citadel really be my final resting place after all? Du Shiking stared at the tall citadel wall not too far away, his eyes seemed lost. After that he went back to his carriage. With a calm countenance, he waved the signal to move toward Iron Cloud Citadel. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, he was already here. What should not have been done was done, and someone would have to take responsibility. A group of people lost in their own thoughts, unconsciously went toward the citadel. After entering the citadel, Du Shiking's carriage went straight to the royal palace. Ch.51 also could not wait any longer. His royal father's illness had become more serious with each day. He was so anxious he wanted to force Du Shiking to treat his father's illness immediately. As for other national issues, he had tossed them aside. He also knew that being able to invite Du Shiking was probably part of Daewoo King Ru's plans. He had allowed Du Shiking to come here. It was obviously not out of good intentions. He probably allowed Du Shiking to treat my father's condition to weaken my authority. However, even knowing this was a trap, Ch.51 could only happily jump into it. It was his own father, not just an emperor but his own flesh and blood. That night, Ch.51 did not return to Bhutan Pavilion until very late. The two people that took the task of following Chu Yang earlier had been waiting for a long time. "Have you found that person?" Ch.51 asked gently. He raised his left arm, which seemed a bit thin and weak, and rubbed his brows, showing some exhaustion. "We are incompetent, we were not able to find the whereabouts of this man." One person bowed and said, "After this person enter Iron Cloud Citadel, he suddenly disappeared from our grasp. We searched everywhere but was not able to pick up any scent of him." "Send more people to search." Ch.51 rubbed his brows and sighed. He switched hands, rubbed his temple and added, "Do not disturb the people." For Iron Cloud right now, even the little bit of strength of the people is important. You absolutely cannot create any sort of chaos. "Yes," they replied, then said worriedly, "Your Highness, I noticed you have been overworked of late. Perhaps we should get someone to help you relax a little." "Good, call Lan Xiang in to massage me." Ch.51 did not decline, but his countenance seemed to show more weariness. "Yes." The two men in black backed down. Ch.51 frowned. He seemed lost in thoughts as his brows came together in worry. Inside his head, Du Shiking's prognosis after examining his father rang out. "Your Highness, your father's illness has gone on for many years. Moreover, the poison still remains in his body. Over the years, it has seeped into his bones and marrow. Medicines or acupuncture would have difficulty intervening. I can only try my best, but I am afraid it would be up to fate. Ch.51 sighed heavily. Seeped into bones and marrow, medicines and acupuncture would have difficulty intervening. These words were like sharp cuts in Ch.51's heart. Father, is there really no hope left? A palace maid named Lan Xiang came in, but when she saw Ch.51 was deep in his thoughts, she dared not disturb and just stood on the side. After a long time, she heard a deep sigh from Ch.51. There was something glistening on the side of his eyes. The prince is crying. This strong Prince Ch.51, who held the whole Iron Cloud nation on his shoulders, was now in tears. Lan Xiang's heart was suddenly filled with sympathy. Only people close to the prince like her would know how hard things have been for him all these years. The price he has to pay in order to race against Daewoo King Ru. From his childhood until now, these past 10 years, the prince has slept less than 4 hours each day. A whole nation, thousands of lives depended on him. Daewoo King Ru and Great Zhao Nation, superior intellect and massive strength, were always like a large mountain bearing down on his heart. If it was someone else, I am afraid this nation would have fallen already. But Ch.51 used his young body to bear this weight. He was too tired. He needed someone to help him. Ch.51 sighed and said sadly, Lan Xiang, help me massage my temple. Those words sounded as if he already knew she was there, but Lan Xiang knew that when he is in such a trance, he would not be able to perceive her presence. This was because Ch.51 never showed his weakness to anyone. Ch.51 lifted his head and looked at Lan Xiang. His eyes returned to their normal brightness. They did not even need time to change. He had returned to the original splendor of reigning Prince Ch.51 of before. Lan Xiang immediately responded and walked forward gently. The prince is already very tired. What I should do is use all of my ability to make him feel a little better. But after lying down just for a bit, Ch.51 suddenly remembered something and sat back up. His brows came together, and, after thinking for a long while, he said, send someone to see if Bao Qiang and Miss Wu Qian of Beyond the Heavens sect went to sleep already. If they have not, ask them to come here. He had suddenly remembered earlier today Du Shi King seemed to have referred to Chu Yang as, expelled disciple of Beyond the Heavens sect. The two words expelled disciple baffled Ch.51. A person like that, in any sect, would be a top character, guarded like a treasure and nurtured with every available resource. How could he have been kicked out of the sect? I have had contact with Beyond the Heavens sect's master, Wu Yunliang, several times. He is definitely not stupid like that. Could there be some hidden secrets behind this, or perhaps some conspiracy, or some other reasons? Lan Xiang hesitated for a moment and politely replied, yes. At this time, Ch.51 lay down once again. Even when he was lying down, his white cloak still completely covered his body, not showing even a little bit of his figure. Shortly after, the two people, Bao Qiang and Wu Qian arrived. After a long time, as he looked at Bao Qiang and Wu Qian leaving, Ch.51 seemed to be contemplating something as he lay back down. Chu Yang, according to Bao Qiang and Wu Qian's words, was not the same person as Chu Yang according to Du Shi King's words. As for the expelled disciple story, the two did not know the whole story. They only received news from the sect that Chu Yang killed his eldest martial brother, and thus violated the laws of Beyond the Heavens sect. The fact that he was not killed on the spot was extremely lenient. Ch.51 frowned slightly. A very long time after, he muttered something unclear. This Chu Yang is extremely interesting. His voice was so low that, besides himself, no one else would have been able to hear it. After Chu Yang entered the citadel, he immediately changed his face a bit. He walked straight and then suddenly turned into a narrow alley. After that, he took 2 more turns. When he came back out, his appearance was that of a completely different person. He was about 30 years old with a mean face and a slight hunched back. Every step was perfectly imitated. He was just like a real hunchback. It was not that he did not want to be found by Ch.51's people, he just wanted to accumulate some capital before they find him. After all, if he wanted to fortify his status, he needed power and money. Therefore, Chu Yang decided if he was going to do this task he would do it well. In broad daylight, he initiated his money-making tactics. But his tactics were a little unscrupulous. The reason why Daewoo King Ru wanted Iron Cloud Nation so much was because Iron Cloud had countless iron mines. Plus, most of them were fine iron mines. This was also why Iron Cloud Nation could afford to be so extravagant. Even arrows of ordinary soldiers were half made of fine steel. It should be noted that even though Great Zhao was rich, but their soldiers' arrows only had fine steel tips and the rest was wood. Moreover, Iron Cloud Nation was bordering the grassland, belonging to the north. The people were sturdy, strong fighters. If they did not take over Iron Cloud Nation first, Great Zhao Nation, regardless of which direction they sent their military, would remain uneasy because of this thorn in their sight. After exiting a narrow alley, Chu Yang immediately ran into a fat man walking by. This guy had a fat face, big ears and womanizing eyes that glared here and there. His clothes were not too fancy, and his walk was somewhat cumbersome. It seemed that he was not some powerful character that would be difficult to deal with. Plus, beside gazing at the young ladies and women, he avoided others. He was the cowardly type that was afraid of trouble. Step by step, Chu Yang walked like a vicious demon, and grabbed his sleeve. Then he immediately turned back into that narrow alley, pulling that fat man with him. Chu Yang's action was really fast. As a result, it looked like a figure just flashed by and that disgusting fat man disappeared from sight. That fat man was caught off guard, so his whole body shook and did not even dare to beg loudly. Great man, I have an old mother and young children, this, what this and that? Chu Yang glared fiercely and yelled, I will tell you. I am none other than 5 Flower Mountains Ma Chuozi from outside the citadel. DLN, Chuozi means hunchback. Today I entered the citadel with the intention of doing some business. I liked the way you look, so I wanted to show you a way to make a fortune. 5 Flower Mountain, Ma Chuozi. The fat man shook as he looked at Chu Yang's hunched back, scared almost to the point of fainting. Suddenly, managed to squeeze out one phrase by some mysterious force. Great man, my lord, there is no 5 Flower Mountain outside of this citadel. Bop. Chu Yang slapped him and said, you don't need to worry whether there is 5 Flower Mountain or not. I only have one question for you. Do you want to die or do you want to live? Live. Of course I want to live. My lord, please spare me. The fat man answered most fluidly. Quickly, tell me about Iron Cloud Citadel. Chu Yang said cruelly, tell me everything. If you leave out any details, I will use your fat for my lamp. After he finished talking, he clasped his hands together. The sound of his joints cracking immediately rang out. That combined with his ferocious gaze really scared the man witless. Of course, he needed to have a clear picture of Iron Cloud Citadel. The fat man's body became mush as he sat paralyzed on the ground. On his face, tears and snot ran down. At first, his pants was just wet. Afterwards, there was a stream along with a stinky smell. An hour passed, and Chu Yang quickly stepped out of the narrow alley with his hand on his nose. He went a distance away before taking in big breaths of the clean air. Oh, mother! I almost died of suffocation. That was really stinky. Later in the conversation, that fat man, perhaps because of great fear, started having gastrointestinal issues and farted non-stop while talking and shaking. This made Chu Yang really annoyed. Even though this fat man was not exactly educated, he was indeed familiar with Iron Cloud Citadel. From south to north, from east to west, he gave Chu Yang a very detailed introduction. Even if it was down an alleyway, whose daughter was particularly voluptuous, which lady was truly beautiful, whose maid was really flirty. All told in great details. That girl's skin is white as ivory, the body has beautiful curves in front and back, that bee has seductive almond eyes. Which house has lots of money, which house has lots of power. Divided the citadel into clear areas, where the business districts were inside the citadel, where the mines were outside the citadel. Which house should not be messed with, which house should be avoided, etc. Hearing everything made Chu Yang dizzy. Finally, following the fat man's direction, he went out to buy a map. The moment he was a good distance away, that fat man shakily stood up on his 2 fat legs. Like a weak willow in the wind, he leaned on the wall. After that, with dripping pants, he ran. Wherever he went, he emitted the smell of a public toilet. making everyone hold their nose and look in surprise. Who says there are no brigands inside the city? Mother Earth, that's just gibberish. Do brigands discriminate cities and villages? Look at that mafioso. His eyes turned green when he heard about the houses with money. The fat man cried. That hateful guy not only scared me half to death, he also took my precious banknote along with a few pieces of silver before leaving. He even said he was doing work in heaven's stead, DLN, justice, charity, etc. Before leaving, he told me I take your money to eliminate trouble for you. You need not mind. My heart is good. Mother Earth, if everyone has a good heart like you, all the people in this world would have been dead a long time ago. Brother, I already showed you the way. If you want to find people to do heaven's work for, or if you want to look for those voluptuous girls, I will not get in your way. I just hope you won't look for me. I am not rich at all. Fatty prayed as he walked. That afternoon, Chu Yang immediately left the citadel to go to the mining area. If he wanted some iron, then he must come here. Before he left, Wu Yunliang gave him a 30,000 silver taels banknote. It might sound like a lot, but it was barely anything for buying iron. Sorry, our Iron Cloud nation has very strict control on iron. Chu Yang had to painfully spend 1,000 for business relations, in order to buy a little iron at a cutthroat price. Of his 30,000, more than half was now gone. After only one night, Chu Yang looked at the block of fine iron and was almost in tears. There was no other way, he had to use up the rest of the money. In the blink of an eye, a rich man full of money like him had turned into a pauper. But it was still not enough for what he needed. Chu Yang was angry. His eyebrows pinched together as he dumped his anger into thin air. Money. What's most important right now is money. A coin can force a good man to die. He used to laugh at this saying and call it a joke. A coin can force an idiot to die. But me? Ha ha ha. His eyes suddenly emitted a green light, like a wolf's eyes in the night. The next day, the wealthy houses of Iron Cloud Citadel discovered they had been robbed. The thief was very clever. He visited many homes unseen during the night without leaving a trace. It was still early in the morning when numerous members of the big houses could barely breathe looking at their empty treasury. If a few 100,000 mice got into a granary, it would not have been so empty. At most, there would be a few scrap pieces left behind. This heartless thief spared nothing, making the owners stomped in such anger that was enough to shake the whole citadel. Their stomps were answered with only dust flying in the air. Gold all gone, silver all gone, treasures all gone, everything was cleaned out. So clean that even a mouse would have cried and left. This thief was too cruel. All the guards did not hear anything, not even a shadow was seen. Amongst the wealthy people, there was Old Man Lee who put his banknotes under his pillow for safekeeping. When he saw his treasury emptied, he thought he still has some consolations. Unfortunately, when he went to check, he was rendered unconscious with a punch. And when he came to, he discovered his banknotes totaling tens of thousands silver taels had disappeared. He also vaguely saw a hunched back. In every treasury, there was a line left behind to show how honorable this pirate was. DLN. I know, he's not on a ship, but it is literally sea bandit and pirate is the closest thing. The words were, the name will never change, rob from the rich and give to the poor, 5 Flower Mountains Marchuozi. Whoever did this really had a heroic air. The next morning, Iron Cloud Citadel's courthouse's door was knocked loudly by the many people seeking redress. They were all big bosses who were crying loudly and banging on the door as if they wanted to shatter it for revenge. As time passed, the front of the courthouse became even more chaotic with the sounds of screaming and crying everywhere. The crying sounds were so miserable, making even bystanders shed tears as well. But the officials of Iron Cloud Citadel just sat coldly on the sideline. Some even gloated a little when they saw such a scene. These officials simply wrote up a report and sent these bosses home to wait for their news. The reason behind this was that these rich people were not exactly good themselves. They were normally arrogant with their noses in the air. They would sell their morals for money. Even when Prince Bhutan was collecting money to build the army, these stingy men all said that they had no money to spare and their families were at the brink of starvation. The brink of starvation. Huh? Then how could you lose hundreds of thousands taels of silver and gold? You are really poor. You people didn't have any money, right? What could you have that the thieves actually want? Now you want us to hunt down the thieves for you. Even if we could, we would rather say we couldn't. Putting everything into the military fund would be best. However, the wanted notice to capture 5 Flower Mountain's Machu was sent out quickly. This was still a vicious, greedy criminal. Of course, they had to bring him to justice. In one night, 50 to 60 rich houses were robbed. It was surely not just one person. If ignored, the danger would be immeasurable. The entire Ironcloud Citadel law enforcement were busy for the next few days. During these days, even though they did not manage to capture Machu, they did grab a handful of petty thieves. Outside of the courthouse, at small corner some distance away, an ornately dressed fat man watched the wealthy people cry and scream to the heavens. His eyes widened, his lips shook, and his face turned blue. It looked like his butt had been sitting on the chair for a long time. God. This was the doings of that Machu. I swear what he did had nothing to do with what I said. This thief is too fierce. Luckily, he caught me earlier on. Otherwise, I would probably be of those crying people. In truth, Chu Yang's actions were very precise. He directly aimed at those stingy people thanks to that fat man. Because that guy was shameless and base, he naturally hung out with birds of the same feather. When his life was threatened by Chu Yang, he did not pay any mind to friendship. Even though there actually were some upstanding business people who were enthusiastic about public welfare, they rubbed people like this fat man the wrong way. Under duress, he blurted out the names that he was most familiar with. The fat man covered his ears from all the crying, and turned his fat butt to go back home. I am now the richest. Haha. You guys normally look down on me saying I have no money. Now, haha, who would dare compare themselves to me? Thank you Machu. 3 days later, Chu Yang opened an ordinary shop on the busy main street 2 blocks from the prince's manor. It was a 3-story house. Yesterday it was still a tea shop, but today the front had changed. 3 groups of workers were busy with the renovations for one day and one night. The old owner thought it was a little weird, but after seeing a pile of shiny gold, immediately cooperated and moved away. How could he not accept? His shop was worth a little over 50 tills of gold, but the other person threw out 200 tills. Plus, the other person did not want anything inside the shop. With that amount of money, he could easily find a better place to open shop. Not accepting would be foolish. So this place now belonged to the rich and powerful man with the surname Chu. On the plaque that faced towards the busy street, 3 flamboyant characters Heavenly Armament Pavilion shined in their gold-lacquered brilliance. It made half of the street shine with a blinding golden-colored radiance. The couplets on both sides were written on silver billboards with gold writings. The entire setup seemed to give off the taste of the nouveau riche. Anyone who passed by would immediately notice a heavy stench of money coming at them head-on. On the billboards were, cutting through steel as if it were mud is not to dream, an eye-opener for you. And below, TLN, your father, have all sorts of divine weapons. Come quickly if you want them. Streamer, no need to wait. Leaning against the door, was a sign, Heavenly Armament Pavilion is open to money, those with little silver need not enter. Millions of silver tills is barely enough, 1,000,000 gold tills does not count as rich. Heavenly treasures are yours to take. The moment you enter you will be satisfied. Evidently, this was not only a nouveau riche, but it looked like he was not that educated as well. An extremely tacky appearance from the house to the billboard. Even the words were crooked and full of evil intent. It was as if a rat's tail was dipped in ink and wine was forced down the rat's mouth. Finally, the rat drew those words by dragging its tail after it was dead drunk. Big Boss Chu sat inside waiting, intent on fleecing the fat sheep that came calling. This is called Grand Duke Chiang goes fishing, waiting for fish to willingly and knowingly take the bait. DLN, author put in a note to say that, naturally, Chu Yang didn't know this fishing story. It's about. Read it here. It should be noted that, preparing for several days and nights was pretty tiring for Chu Yang, but it was also pretty exciting. This taste of unearned wealth really was fantastic. Goddamn. No wonder so many people wanted to be thieves. He only needed to stretch out his hand, and he could take their gold or silver. This was really too easy. Stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. It could be also be considered that at that time they were oozing with money while he was put to death, robbing a little for himself. Was that not the same thing? The moment this heavenly armament pavilion opened, it made all the people who saw it open their eyes wide in shock. Too arrogant, too outrageous. Since times past no one had ever seen anyone who tried to run a business this way. This was not even about trying to run a business anymore, but purely trying to offend people. Moreover, this was tormenting yourself to offend other people. Suddenly, Heavenly Armament Pavilion became the biggest joke since Iron Cloud's founding, and the name began to rapidly spread out. Hey, quickly go and check it out. There is an extreme-leveled lunatic opening a shop in bright daylight right over here. In a flash, the outside of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion was filled with a large number of gawkers, with nothing to do, and since everyone was idle anyway, going to look at this idiot was not such a bad thing. But everyone was also feeling a bit strange. This idiot can show off anywhere. But did he have to come to Iron Cloud Citadel's most bustling Imperial Street to get shamed? This person's brain didn't go bad, right? But if it really is an idiot, where did he get so much money to open this shop? Inside, Big Boss Chu sat with his two legs crossed. On the counter in front of him there was not a single divine weapon in sight. The only thing there was a cup of tea. Steam and tea fragrances slowly spiraled from the cup into the air. Big Boss Chu's head was also in this spiral of tea fragrance, nodding from one point to the other. This really was too sleepy. At the left wall near the inner door hung a long sword, a great saber, a short sword, and a short saber. It seemed like these four articles are the only merchandise with which he opened up shop with, and are the divine weapons that he was prepared to sell. On the outside, the chaotic mess of people was at the same time speaking in wonder, sighing, and laughing. Chu Yang turned a deaf ear to this, as the ones he wanted to do business with were not these people anyways. Moreover, Chu Yang's memory of his past life clearly told him that Iron Cloud Nation perhaps did not care about other things, but heavenly armament. These two words will certainly touch Iron Cloud's leadership's most sensitive nerve. Get out the way. Get out of the way. A good dog does not block the road. This means you don't submit, do you? In the distance came unreasonable sounds of yelling. A few dark-haired large men with unbuttoned collars were walking over this way, the way they walk reminiscent of crabs. Wherever they went, the crowd there was like seeing the plague and scattered to avoid them. What heavenly armament pavilion? My God, such an upstart, said a dark-haired big man with a face that had a huge mole growing on it, and on this mole there was a long thick tuft of black hair as well. This person used slanted eyes to look at the plaque saying Heavenly Armament Pavilion, and with his nose in the air, suddenly and furious yelled his mother, "Is this person poor to the point that he became insane? Not a lot silver, then don't come in." I don't have a lot of silver, but I still want to go in. Big brother, big brother. On his side, the smaller man who was just looking left and right surprisingly yelled, "Thither, this is all silver, pure silver." This guy was pointing towards the plaque while jumping and shouting as if having a stroke. Silver? The person squeezed the plaque a bit doubtful. Suddenly his tone of voice changed. My God, this really is silver. The eyes which looked up at the plaque suddenly changed. It became greedy and malicious. Who is the boss inside? Come out, come out. His voice was almost hoarse. His Adam's apple moved up and down swallowing rivers of saliva. F me, I don't even need to ask for anything else. I only to take away this plaque and it would be enough. You want to buy something? Chu Yang folded his arms, and slowly came out. There was no other way. In this entire heavenly armament pavilion there was only him alone, for he was both the manager and the worker. The moment he came out to look, Big Boss Chu's nose almost became crooked from the anger. Another strange idiom. Basically he was pissed off. I am preparing to catch big fishes, but before the big fishes even came I first attracted a group of the local hooligans. This is too effing unlucky, isn't it? This shop was opened by you? That person asked with his nose in the air. What? Chu Yang was in a bad mood, so his tone naturally would not be good as well. What? My God, you really have a temper, do you? It seems you do not know who is in front of you, do you? The dark-haired big man stretched forth one hand intending to seize this damn kid in front of him by the collar, and give him a beating. Get lost. Chu Yang gave a low yell, with a glare in his eyes. Then his two arms rose up and suddenly from his body, burst out a layer of visible black smoke. It contained an overwhelming feeling of evil killing intent and a freezing chill, which rushed toward the other group. That dark-haired big man was just a small fry on these streets. Not only that, he was not even a martial pupil. He only relied on his two arms' strength to bully other people. How could he withstand this soul attack that was at the level of a revered martial artist? The dark-haired big man had just finished a word when he suddenly felt a chill. Then he was hit head-on by a killing aura that shook his very soul. His two eyes began to roll back, and then he began to feel like he had sunk into an endless nightmare. It seemed as if countless demonic ghouls that were bleeding from many orifices rushed upon him from all directions, from both heaven and hell. Ah! After uttering a scream that was not like any which a human can voice, the dark-haired big man staggered back. Suddenly his two hands clung to his head, and he began rolling back and forth on the floor, while crazily screaming, "Mercy, no, I didn't do it. Mercy, mercy, ah!" He suddenly jumped up and turned to escape, but in just a single step he fell back onto the ground in a tumble. Blood started to flow, and he lay paralyzed on the ground. It seemed that he couldn't even stand up anymore, but he still desperately crawled forward. As he was crawling away, the crotch of his pants gradually became wet. Only the piercing cry for mercy echoed slowly in the sky. His two younger brothers, DLN, not really brothers, you know how it is in a gang, who came along with him did not even understand what just happened, but had seen their big bro becoming like that in the blink of an eye. He had changed from being very normal to being such a terrifying sight. They both felt a sudden chill through the air and couldn't help but let out a cry. Then, to the left and to the right, they scattered like cockroaches. Chu Yang feigned a perplexed expression to look at the distantly fleeing trio, and scratched his head a bit. It seemed to the onlookers like he didn't know what even happened. Only after think for a long time did he seem to have realized something and said, "Ah right, divine weapons each have a wicked and wild air surrounding them." It seems like they sensed people who had bad intentions in their hearts and that offended the divine weapons inside. All divine weapons have a soul and spirit, so they disciplined them a bit. After listening to him explaining so, everyone in the crowd suddenly understood what happened. All of them could not help but show a bit of fear on their faces as they took several steps back. They felt a chill go up their spines. Chu Yang laughingly said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I do not know who else wants to come to visit a bit. Please, please, you're all welcome, don't be afraid." With a rustle, the onlooking crowd quickly dispersed. Chu Yang, with a small hee-hee laugh, turned back into the shop. Heavenly Armament Pavilion really was terrible. The divine weapons in their reach actually had a spirit. If an ill-willed person goes there, they would curse them. This rumor spread even faster than the previous rumor. After all, there were a lot of people who personally witnessed it happening. Thus, it spread out with even more vigor than the previous one. The people who retold the story did it in a low and careful voice. Those who did the listening kept quiet with bated breaths. Who wouldn't believe this? Did you not see those guys from East Main Street who were scared to insanity? What? You don't know who those guys were? It's those hooligans that were raking in protection fees, you know. Since then, this rumor spread even more excessively. It developed into many different versions, giving this newly opened Heavenly Armament Pavilion, which had opened out of thin air, another veil of mystery. That night, Chu Yang was somewhat puzzled. On the first day of opening, Heavenly Armament Pavilion's assertiveness had attracted a crowd of onlookers. Inside the crowd there were also many martial artists, and many affluently dressed people with haughty demeanor, who were very likely the members of some large families within the city. How could these people actually have been able to hold back their curiosity and not come in for a look? It should be noted that with a sharp divine weapon in hand, you can raise your combat ability at least one level. Whether it is walking in the Jianghu or fighting in the battleground, it is always a treasure that martial artists could only dream about getting. When one has a divine weapon, its qualities would be far more superior to any other ordinary weapon. It is tantamount to having an extra life. Did this not have enough attraction for them? No matter whether if it was a martial family or the military, this type and level of attraction should be enough, right? Chu Yang remained completely puzzled. What sort of thing was this? As far as I know, The moment this Iron Cloud nation hears of this situation, they should have been storming in regardless if it was true or not. But how bizarre that nobody actually cares. Did I remember incorrectly? On the second day, there were still people gawking. But it was even more deserted than the first day. Frankly, not even one person went through the doors to enter the shop. At least on the first day, there was a group that came to make some trouble. On the third day, even the onlookers became less. Chu Yang could not help but be depressed. Buying or not buying was one thing, but at least there should be a few people who would come to look around. There were millions of people throughout the city. Did they not have any curiosity? In the end, what sort of thing was this? On the third night, there was finally movement. After eating, Chu Yang was looking at the book Immortal Medicine that Dushi King gave him. Upon opening the title page, there was an opening phrase, "In this world, who can avoid death? None. Therefore, as doctors, one can only heal non-deadly diseases." However, what is a non-deadly disease? I humbly believe that it is those that are inflicted by external forces and cause one bodily pain. Those are non-deadly diseases. As for terminal diseases, they are one's destiny. Chu Yang was shocked as he read. The meaning of these words was clear: as long as one was not old to the point of burning out the last bit of gas in his tank, any injury or disease could be cured. Of course, this was only in theory, but even if it's only in theory, the tone was majestic to the extreme. Bang! Bang! There was someone knocking on the door. Chu Yang, who was just getting immersed in the book, impatiently asked, "Who is it? I heard that there are divine weapons for sale here, thus I especially came to visit." From the outside came a tired voice. Chu Yang's heart moved a bit. Although this voice sounded tired, it glowed with a one-of-a-kind type of haughtiness that did not seem to be putting anyone in its size. Only people who have become accustomed to being in high places could have such a tone. Moreover, this voice sounded very young. Closing the book, Chu Yang opened the door. In a glance there was a youth in silk clothing standing there, his face calm and yet tired, but within his brows there seems to be an unsolvable light of melancholy. Even after seeing Chu Yang open the door, he still had the same expression. Although this youth was clothed affluently, but his clothing was entirely covered with dust, it actually seemed to be from a long journey without a break. Such a person, with such a haughty tone, but how could he appear to be so pitiful? At the moment that Chu Yang opened the door, this youth's stomach suddenly let out a sound. It seemed to be from hunger, but upon this person's face you definitely cannot see the slightest trace of embarrassment. A lamp was lit. There was a lonely glow of light. "Please sit." From the guest's demeanor and air, Chu Yang could see that the youth in front of him was definitely not from some mundane family. He was certainly the child of a large family, because this type of upper-class air was not something that those regular officials' families would have. Spoiled rich kids are of course easily produced by large rich families, but they were also the easiest place for geniuses to be produced as well, because their starting point was much higher than any hero who comes from the masses. Chu Yang had some doubts. Why had such a large family's precious child come out at midnight? Why was there not even a single guard to follow him as well? Moreover, why did he appear to be so pitiful? The youth lightly smiled, and only after checking out the inside of the store a bit did he take steps to come inside. After sitting on Chu Yang's opposite, he lightly smiled and said, "What is Elder Marshal Brother's name? You want to buy weapons, or are you here to make friends?" Chu Yang smiled, then looked up and asked, "Good." The youth gazed at him for a moment, before he gently spoke. After speaking, he took off a sword from his waist and placed it on the table. Only after gazing unwilling at it for a moment did he then slowly push it in front of Chu Yang. "Since brother specializes in selling divine weapons, how about looking a bit at this sword of mine?" Chu Yang was somewhat speechless. He was there to sell weapons, and for 3 days he had not sold any, nor was there any customer, and now one finally came at night. But listening to his tone, he was actually trying to sell a weapon. Was he actually in the same business? Chu Yang thought his luck really was bad to the extreme. But after thinking for a bit he still reached out for the sword. There was nothing to do anyway, and idling was idling after all. The moment the sword was in hand it felt quite heavy. Chu Yang couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and exclaim, "Good sword." "Brother, you have not yet pulled it out. How can you already know that this is a good sword?" The gold-clothed youth smiled at him. Although the clothes on him were very pitiful, his every word and move were leisurely, which showed how good an upbringing his family gave him. Common long swords are usually 3 feet in length, with scabbard 3 feet 3 inches. But this sword of yours together with scabbard is 3 feet 5 inches. Chu Yang looked at the sword and said, for experts of the sword, an inch longer is an inch stronger. This is specific to swords rather than other weapons. People who says that this saying applies to any weapon are mistaken, because the sword is a gentle killer. It is long but not firm, thus it is brittle. If it is brittle, then it is easy to break. Therefore, it is easy to create a short sword. That is to say that creating a long sword is difficult. A sword like yours, being much longer, adds to the difficulty of making the sword. But from looking at the scabbard and hilt, old and unadorned with a faint blood aura, shows that it has been through many years, experienced a lot of kills, yet it remains unchanged. There is no doubt this is a good sword. Well said. The youth laughed, his laughter full of appreciation, and said, brother indeed is a person who knows swords. Also, regularly a long sword weighs at about 6 pounds to 9 pounds, the ideal heavy swords are weighted at 7.7 pounds. Chu Yang lightly smiled. If mixed with other specific metals, then it is very hard to say. But this sword of yours, with scabbard, its weight has already exceeded more than 30 pounds. Chu Yang said, a sword that heavy, and yet does not change its shape, is definitely a good sword. The look of appreciation in the youth's eyes became more profuse. Chu Yang's wrist turned, with a clang, as if were a groaning dragon and a hissing tiger. The long sword exited the scabbard. Suddenly a ray of cold light spread throughout the room. The lamp's light shone upon the sword actually and became thousands of rays that almost made the entire house transparent in its brilliance. Good sword. Chu Yang praised, carefully inspecting it. The more he looked, the more the praises came. Blade as still as autumn water. Yet when still, it seemed to be constantly shaking. Observing a beauty underneath the lamp is a great joy in life. But to those who know swords, seeing a sword underneath the light is actually the greatest blessing. The youth could not help but sigh. The sword has a spirit within, a heart within. To see a sword is to look at the killings in Jianghu. A famed sword within one's eye is like clear autumn water. Groaning dragons and hissing tigers sounds brings to one's mind an image of armored cavalry stampeding through Jianghu. Yes. Chu Yang sighed and said, to look at a sword, is to look at Jianghu. He raised his head watching the youth. But you and I have never met before. Your coming here today is not to let me take a look at this sword, to feel a bit of Jianghu. While talking, sword lights flashed. Without even a look, Chu Yang returned the long sword to its scabbard, as if the blade itself had eyes. You really are an expert with the sword. The youth smiled. Naturally, I am not just here to let you see the sword. I wanted to find a person who loves swords. His eyes flashed a pained look. Ever since coming out, I didn't have a single penny on hand. A journey of 8,000 miles to here, all the items which I had have all been bartered away save only for this sword. His eyes looked at Chu Yang. Brother, I only need 120 gold. I will for now leave my sword here as collateral. After a period of time I will come to retrieve it. At that time I will return you 10,000 gold to take my sword back. Chu Yang fell into silence. Doubts began to well up. This sword, one only needed a look to see that it was priceless. To put it as collateral for 120 gold was more than enough. But he just could not understand why such a good thing came to find him on its own. In this world, one does not know how many professional pawn shops there are. He was just an ignorant fella trying to bait out a prey. This storefront was also there only for his own purposes, to attract people's eyes and increase his own worth. As soon as that purpose was achieved, then he would immediately close it down. Unexpectedly, ever since he opened, not a single business transaction had been done yet. But this late at night there was actually someone who came here on their own to pawn something. Moreover, it was such a good sword. This event really was strange, too unusual. Could it be that there was something fishy about this? Past midnight, within Crown Prince Manor, the burly stature of Wu Qiangyang left looking pitiful. Dear Len, you guys remember him? The vulgar guy. The moment he came to Tai Butan's, even without saying a word. Everything was blocked at once by Ch.51's words. "No need to explain, I know for sure that it was you." Then he was just left hanging in there, standing upright and left hanging for half an afternoon until the evening. This great general who within Ironcloud was considered so powerful and formidable in the armed forces, undoubtedly mighty, in subordinates' hearts, invincible and undefeatable. He was, for the entire afternoon and half the night, continuously wiping off cold sweat. Ch.51 had been constantly approving documents and arranging tasks. Waves and waves of people had been walking in, then the waves and waves of people walked out. Everyone was moving hurriedly. Only Chu Yang stood like a stake in the middle of the hall, motionless. This time it really was embarrassing to the point of death. Chu Yang looked at the pairs of eyes that curiously watched him. Those surprised, questioning gazes made him feel unbelievably shamed. He almost wanted to find a hole to up into. In particular, several who recognized him and were familiar with him, their eyes when looking at him were like those watching a monkey. Chu Yang, for countless times, looked at Ch.51 with a gaze pleading for mercy. Brat, DLN, literal is little ancestor, but means little devil or brat. Even if you cut off my head, please don't continue to leave here like this. But Ch.51 did not even spare him a single look. Their eyesight didn't even meet for just a bit. Moreover, he didn't even try to talk to him. If Ch.51 did not speak a word, then naturally Chu Yang was afraid to speak as well. This teenage crown prince's power and influence were still quite solid. The key was the fame and respect he accumulated over the years. This made Chu Yang respectful of him to the extreme. Thus, he was very afraid. If Ch.51 were switched with someone else, it would be likely that this general, whose temper was notoriously grumpy, would have already smashed a table and begun to swear viciously. But in front of Ch.51, he even had to consider the loudness of his breathing. Ch.51's final sentence rescued him from his predicament. Looking at the document on the desk, without looking up, he said, "Go find the army penalty section. Give yourself 100 lashes and a year's fine in pay. All the people who were involved in this matter is to be treated as such." Ch.51 looked at the documents on the table before him, without lifting his head said, "I believe that you will not try any mischief again. Get out." Ch.51 did not let out any fury and sounded very calm. But it was just this type of calm voice that made Chu Yang's heart tremble, because this meant that Ch.51 was really angry. If Ironcloud Nation were not in such a crisis, his head would probably be hanging on a flagpole by now. Hey, if it wasn't a crisis, and my brain wasn't retarded, why would I even do such a thing? After hearing Ch.51's penalties, Chu Yang felt as if he had been granted amnesty, thanked him again and again. With a turn of his body, like a rabbit being chased by a wild dog, he ran out of the prince's mansion. Only then did he let out a long breath. With a sound plopped himself on the ground, opening his mouth and loudly sighing, "My mother, finally out of there." This feeling really isn't much better than just being beaten. As for mischiefs, the thought did not even enter Chu Yang's mind. Although 100 lashes was a lot, but he could still endure it. But if there was more mischief, then the next time it wouldn't be just 100 lashes. These kind of things. Chu Yang, having learned a lesson from the ancestors, definitely would not dare to pretend to be obedient outwardly while opposing the prince secretly and go piss him off again. Reporting, Crown Prince, we have found that person. Oh, where is he? Ch.51 was just currently looking at the mountains of reports on the table. His right hand was holding a long feathered pen and quickly approved several reports. Although his speed was fast, but each one was looked at clearly, and had been carefully considered. Every approval was sharply written, directly answered. This type of insight, it really does make people gasp with admiration. Early today, at Ironcloud Citadel's main street, there was a rumor that someone lost their sanity due to sheer fright. Hearing this news, I went to have a look, but for some reason saw the person that Crown Prince was just looking for in a store as its shopkeeper. The speaker's face was a bit strange, as if he could not hold in his laughter. Store, shopkeeper. Ch.51 finally could not help it. His hand jerked and the brush smudged an ink spot onto the report. It was really too unexpected, that wolf-like person, How could he become the shopkeeper in a store at Iron Cloud Citadel? However, the store he opened is Heavenly Armament Pavilion. The dark-clothed man gave a description of Heavenly Armament Pavilion, and said, "It seems to be selling divine weapons, but the style is quite mad and quite grand. It's completely unprecedented." Divine weapons? The style was especially grand? Ch.51 gently put down the pen within his hand. His beautiful eyebrows slightly jumped. Only after a while did he thoughtfully said, "Tomorrow, I will go and personally have a look." Also, the rumor of a man who was driven mad because he offended the divine weapons and so was punished by the heavens. But according to my investigation, that person must have been scared witless by Chu Yang's aura, so that the soul separated from the body, resulting in madness. Oh? A light flashed through Ch.51's eyes, and asked, to simply use one's aura to drive someone insane. What kind of cultivation would you need? This is very hard to say. The person hesitated for a moment, then said, generally if it's an expert below the realm of martial great master, then, even if it's against ordinary people, they definitely cannot cause them to faint. This is because aura is after all something unseen and non-physical, and the aura of an expert is something only those at the same level can grasp. However, there are always the exceptions. What exceptions? If the one emitting this aura is originally the kind of person who can murder without thinking, is encumbered with blood debts, with both hands reeking of blood, this kind of peerless killer, or a warlord who battled year after year, killing without thoughts. Once they release their chi into that kind of fierce and brutal aura, I'm afraid even if it scares someone to death, that would not be surprising. But Chu Yang's age is very young, so this supposition seems a little ridiculous. The blue-clothed man frowned, distressed. He indeed felt that to use this supposition on a youth who was only in his mid-teen, seemed to be too preposterous. At that young age, how could one murder without thinking? Oh. Ch.51 let out a long sound. I originally wanted to go in and investigate a bit, but was stopped by members of the military ministry. The military ministry had secretly blockaded Heavenly Armament Pavilion, not allowing anyone to enter. Members of the military ministry? Ch.51 suddenly smiled. Were they Imperial Uncle Longcheng's men? Yes. It seems like Imperial Uncle will soon make a move. Ch.51 smiled relaxingly. Never thought that a Heavenly Armament Pavilion would make Imperial Uncle Longcheng, who in recent years has always been reclusive, who even I have difficulty meeting, appear. This Chu Yang really is my lucky star. Also, 3 of the 7 sections of Bhutan Pavilion within Great Zhao has suddenly lost contact. Prince, I'm afraid Daewoo Kingru has made his move. Ch.51 frowning, thought for a long while, only then did he slowly said, it can't be Daewoo Kingru. Daewoo Kingru is not this impatient. He did not say why it was not Daewoo Kingru. It seemed like he just came to this conclusion. There was no room for discussion. Is there any other news? Great Zhao's southern forces have begun to mobilize. 3 army corps have started leaning towards Devil's Cry Valley. But this event, if looking at the situation, is really a move against Limitless Nation, with no relations to Iron Cloud. Iron Cloud was located north of Great Zhao. The mobilization of Great Zhao's southeast army was thousands of miles away. But once the blue-clothed man spoke this sentence, Ch.51's expression suddenly became very serious. He murmured, southeast. His eyes suddenly glinted. He again murmured and asked, southeast, 3 army corps? Yes, in the southeast. The blue-clothed man was somewhat surprised by Prince's reaction. How could an army mobilizing thousands of miles away affect Iron Cloud? Tomorrow afternoon, tell the generals and military affairs ministers to come here for a bit. Ch.51 pinched his brow and said in a dignified manner, this time, Great Zhao's mobilization is certain to be something unusual. Command Bhutan Pavilion Intelligence to immediately gather information regarding this matter. Once there is news, immediately report back. Yes, let this news be delivered to Imperial Uncle Longcheng. Ch.51 added, since he has come out, he should know about it. Even if he didn't come out, he should still know. But he still needs to let me know that he knows. This sentence came out just like a tongue twister. While saying it, even Ch.51 himself began to smile. Yes, The blue-clothed man's eyes suddenly flashed with a light. Tai Longcheng was Tai Butan's uncle, the #1 royalty below the Iron-Cloud Emperor. He was not just a lavishly cared-for prince of a royal household, but also a general, a famous one at that. Amongst the continent's great generals, he was ranked first, undefeatable, invincible. The entirety of Ironcloud's military was reformed by him to become strong as a steel plate. How Ironcloud Nation was able to hold on for this long, besides Tai Butan's great skills, was due to Tai Longcheng's power and great abilities as a general. Two people, one internal, one external, one with the pen, one with the sword. This was the greatest weapon in deterring Dai Wu King Ru. Arrangements completed, Tai Butan gently waved and said, "You can go. You've worked hard." "Yes, your subordinate will retire now." The blue-clothed man quietly exited. Southeast. Dai Wu King Ru, do you really want to start? Tai Butan took in a deep breath, finally taking his thoughts off the matter. Right now, there were other things to deal with. In particular, Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Tai Butan read out these 3 words one by one. Within his heart a flame began to burn. With that man's ability, to say such a thing, surely it would not be empty boasts. The one thing Tai Butan was missing right now was divine weapons. This type of weapon might not have much usefulness for regular soldiers, but for Butan Pavilion, which Tai Butan himself set up, such divine weapons were urgently needed. Because a considerable part of the organization were dead warriors, and another part were killers who were carefully cultivated for years by Ironcloud's royal family. If attempting to kill a target, with a divine weapon in hand, one can increase the chance of success by more than a few percentages. Even if it only increased the chance for success by a tenth, then it would be enough for Tai Butan to pay good money for it. But there were no such easy things in life. Iron mines might be numerous in Ironcloud Nation, but as for high-grade weapons, they have always been the weakness of Ironcloud. Moreover, this type of divine weapon has only exists within legends, never before seen. But now there was actually someone here who opened a heavenly armament court. Tai Butan decided, no matter if this news was true or false, tomorrow he would go to have a look for himself. An assassin was a dead warrior. For a long time, people have confused assassins with killers. But this is a big mistake. For although assassins and killers all have the purpose of killing an enemy, their process was not the same. Once an assassin makes his move, then there must be a death as a result. If not the target's death, then his own death, or both. To put one's life on the line, only then can one make the move to kill one's target. Regardless of the target death or not, the assassin's fate was to die. Therefore, there were often assassins sneaking into an enemy's heavily guarded location to conduct assassinations, and regardless of success, once the move had been made, they must see it as if their death was forthcoming. Therefore, an assassin was often called a dead warrior. But a killer was not the same. If he was unsuccessful, he would flee far and wide and slowly look for opportunities to strike. The emphasis was on protecting himself first, then killing the enemy second. Between these two, there was a fundamental difference. So even if there were rankings within the world, then there would only be a #1 killer, never a #1 assassin. Because an assassin could not to be ranked. When person decides to be an assassin, he was a dead man walking. You may find it very strange. The youth gently stroked the blade, his eyes full of affection and reluctance. He slowly said, "Black Dragon is a good sword. Anyone who is able to have it, should cherish it and treat it with care. Pawn shops. I've already visited several of those. Those people were all blind to it. If I pawned my sword to them, then it would just be insulting to my Black Dragon. Forgive my bluntness." Chu Yang lightly said, "If you're able to have such a sword, then your skill should not be very weak either, whether through armed robbery or thieving in the night. For you gold and silver should be inconsequential things. Why must you pawn your beloved sword? What kind of talk is this?" This youth seemed like he had just been greatly insulted. Suddenly standing up, he angrily said, "Would I, Gaduk Singh, do such a thing? Gaduk Singh?" Chu Yang's startled heart jumped. Suddenly, he opened his eyes wide and stared. So it's him. His head was suddenly overflowing with memories of his past life. Gaduk Singh, the heir of middle three heavens family, an outstanding talent among the younger generation. Rumors had it that this person as a child was called sword addict. His obsession with the sword was almost innate. At the age of 3 he became a sword pupil, at 7 a sword warrior, a sword master at only around 13-year-old. And on the year he was 18, he became a sword great master. Age 21, revered sword artist. At 33, he was already 9th grade sword king. He became the youngest person to try and achieve the realm of sword emperor TLN, highest level for sword, since times past. This type of cultivation speed was that of incredible legends. Duxing had created a generation of myths and legends within the middle three heavens. Such achievements, in the entirety of the mid-heavens, perhaps only the generation's evil prince, DLN. This is a pun of Auxian's name, as Xi means evil. Auxian could compare. Duxing and Auxian were the idols of all the youths within middle three heavens. In the past life, Duxing was someone that even Chu Yang, the poisonous sword revered martial artist, looked up to. A large part of Chu Yang's determination to reach the peak was due to the influence of these genius. But Chu Yang never could have thought that the soaring dragon sword king of his past life could have fallen down to a point that he even wanted to pawn his beloved treasure sword. This. How does one put this into words? No wonder the name of this black dragon sword seemed so familiar when he heard it. It turned out to be him. The 12 famed people of the time in the mid-heavens: Hemo, Black Devil, Anzu, Dark Bamboo, Gaduk, Lone Traveler, Dusha, Poison Spirit, Tian Ji, Heavenly Secret, Leak Sun 2, Strict Aggression, Mo Dao, Black Saber, Qian Hao, 1000 Talents, Xi Gongzi, Evil Young Master, Meng Luo, Dream Fall, Qian Hua, Jade Flower, Tenburu, Heaven Cannot Compare, DLN. Yes, the English here doesn't make much sense when put together. But in Chinese it does, sort of, and it also rhymes in Chinese as well. This line is basically 4 poetic lines of the 12 famed people. Despite how this sentence don't seem to make sense in English, in Chinese it does carry a lot of meaning. For example, the 3 ending words Tenburu, meaning heaven cannot compare, is the name of one of the 12 people. But in this case, it also caps off the entire sentence, saying that the heaven cannot compare to these men. These 12 people covered the middle 3 heavens and dominated all. Each one was an out-of-this-world expert, geniuses among geniuses. Within this group was Gaduk, was really this young master Duxing. Chu Yang slanted his eyes, looking at this future legend who would traverse the middle 3 heavens, and in his mind started to do some calculations. Looking at his appearance, he is only at around 20 or so, that is to say, he hasn't reached revered sword artist yet. But he must have already reached sword great master, and at the peak of sword great master as well. This is a meat pie falling from the heavens. Heaven sent me a powerful man, and so rare to get him while he is so poor as well. Of course, even rarer is that I'm so rich. Never before have I been this rich. Even so, in Chu Yang's heart there were some questions. A sword great master. How did he reach this point? A sword great master pawning his own sword. What was this? However, this Duxing really was the same as the legend from the past life, just firm and upright. Duxing, walking alone through his life, traversing the world. But one of the biggest good points, everything he obtained were fair and square, all legitimate income. Absolutely no wealth of questionable origins. Just this one point. The whole of the middle 3 heavens, including his enemies, all praised him as a good man. A sword great master pushed to this point by the lack of gold and silver, and still did not resort to stealing or robbing. Although Chu Yang had some contempt, and disagreed with this kind of approach, but he could not help but to praise this guy's perseverance. Duxing, is it? Chu Yang lightly smiled, putting on an enigmatic look. He pointed at the 4 weapons hanging on the wall. How about you first check out the weapons I have here and see how they compare with yours? Then, Chu Yang rose, taking off from the wall a long sword and a great saber, and placed them in front of Duxing. Duxing was a bit surprised. His face showed a look of disdain. He squinted and said, "These sabers and swords of yours, from their looks, they seem brand new. never used. The fact that they have just been recently forged is readily apparent. Their scabbards shine with light, and although they look as if they are expensive, but single look will tell that they are made of regular metal, not worth much money. This guy really was direct. This type of weapon is basically mass-produced goods. For killing a chicken is fine, at best you can use it to fool people who don't know better. While speaking, Gaduk Singh reached out his hand to grab the long sword. Indeed a true sword great master, for he did not even spare the sabre a single look. The moment the sword was in his hand, Gaduk Singh's mouth emitted a no sound. The look of disdain on his face instantly disappeared, replaced with great surprise. This sword, there's something wrong with this sword. Gaduk Singh muttered, but a shock ran through his heart. This sword was even heavier than his own sword. Chu Yang chuckled, stood up and walked into the back room. This guy is probably hungry. I should probably prepare something for him to eat. As for leaving his weapons with Gaduk Singh, Chu Yang was 100% assured. For someone who would not steal even when starving to death and would rather pawn his beloved sword. If he could not trust him, then there really were no one else in the world he could trust. Even if Daewoo King Ru were to steal his sword and ran away, Chu Yang will not be surprised. But if it were Gaduk Singh, then wouldn't that be a joke? Carrying in the food after leaving for a while, he saw that Gaduk Singh, who was sitting at the table, was still staring and maintaining a look of being overly shocked. This guy was obviously starving but seemed utterly indifferent to the food Chu Yang carried out, only looking at the sword in his hand while murmuring to himself, how could this be possible? How could this sword that has not been watered and nourished with blood be so sharp? Is there such thing as impossible? Chu Yang grabbed a thick iron bar with one hand and grabbed the sword in Gaduk Singh's hand with the other. Then he shaved the iron bar as if shaving the skin off an apple. Ting, with a slight noise, a thin piece was shaved off the iron bar. With Gaduk Singh's perceptive eyes, he could see that Chu Yang's hands absolutely did not exercise any power, only relying on the sword's own sharpness. Ting, another piece. Ting, ting, the thick iron bar was shaved down by half. On the ground a patch of iron shavings shinned. Gaduk Singh felt his mental state collapsing. He had problems with his family along with other issues and he snuck out, but due to being in a hurry he had forgotten to bring money. Along the way he pawned off most of the items he had carried. Since he was a man and not a woman, he did not wear jewelry. A jade pendant and a few concealed weapons made of precious metals were all he had. But going into pawn shops again and again made Gaduk Singh completely annoyed by those people in there. His jade pendant and precious metals actually became a crappy jade, and crappy metals. Can there even be crappy ones for this kind of stuff? So this time, although Gaduk Singh had been hungry for 2 days, he resolutely refused to go to a pawn shop. For he knew what kind of treasure his black dragon was. If those idiots called it a crappy sword, then he was afraid that he would really be unable to restrain himself and pull out his sword to kill someone. So he was looking over all the way on the road. Only after hearing the rumor that this heavenly armament pavilion had scared a man to insanity, did he tentatively find his way here. After seeing the 3 words Heavenly Armament Pavilion, he suddenly felt very comfortable. Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Wasn't his black dragon a heavenly armament? Besides the 2 words Heavenly Armament, there really was no other word that could be compared to his black dragon. Not even the words heavenly armament would be sufficient to describe it, because black dragon actually has spirituality. Thus when Gaduk Singh walked in, he had already made up his mind. As long as the other party accepts, he would gather the money in the shortest possible time, and then with the fastest speed, redeem black dragon back. Of course, there was a precondition that this heavenly armament pavilion's boss had to cherish black dragon, only then could he be assured. How would he even know that this place that he so casually walked in actually had such a treasure of a sword? The legendary cut iron as if it were mud. Did I really witness it? Secretly pinching his thigh, Gaduk Singh finally determined that he was not dreaming. In the next moment, Gaduk Singh suddenly became furious. He was angry like crazy. You actually put this sword here to be sold to those vulgar animals? Gaduk Singh suddenly jumped up. His eyes rolled up and stared fiercely at Chu Yang. The rumbling in his belly was getting louder and louder, and his mouth was snarling as well. He was full of rage. Chu Yang blinked his eyes a few times. This is blasphemy. This is a crime. This is an insult to these divine weapons. Gaduk Singh roared, directly becoming mad. Seeing the surprised expression on the other person's face, his heart almost exploded from rage. This type of divine sword was something that, unless they were a superior swordsman, people definitely cannot obtain. They do not deserve it. Was it not said that treasured swords are gifts to heroes and pearls are gifts to beauties? How could ordinary human beings deserve to have these divine weapons? The name heavenly armament definitely fitted perfectly. I will not allow this. Gaduk Singh jumped up, eyes sharp. I will never allow this. Chu Yang was stunned. He looked at this person whose stomach let loose sounds of hunger and was almost at the verge of starving to death. This person was jumping up and down in his shop with an appearance of almost being excited to death. He actually disallowed him to sell his own stuff. This is too much, isn't it? Buddy, this store seems to belong to me. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. Gaduk Singh froze for a bit, suddenly overbearingly said, "What is yours? It's not okay even if it's yours." Chu Yang was speechless. This idiot, no wonder he advances this fast, looks like he has already been possessed by a sword. This was an extreme obsession, not just a regular addiction. This is a sword that's rare to see even once in this world. Gaduk Singh's eyes and face, even the whole body, seemed to exude a frenzied air. This is a perfect sword. This is a favorable killing tool. Such a sword, if piercing a person's heart, if cutting off a person's heads, how refreshing would that be? It's enjoyable even just thinking about it. Then while saying, he closed his eyes, his hands making sword-like gestures, his mouth imitating the sounds. He did not even notice himself. This is a real sword. This is what the sword's fate should be. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. Looking at this madman, he immediately placed him in the same ranks as mental patients. Unbelievable. There is actually this kind of people. Gaduk Singh was so excited that it was as if he was in convulsions. With a loud clang he unsheathed the great sabre on the table. Looking at the sabre's shine, this man's convulsion became more severe. He was quickly approaching the point of severe spasms. This great sabre is also a rarely seen treasure. Jumping to the wall's side, with a smooth sound, he pulled both the short sword and small sabre from their scabbards. This is simply the dream of all the martial artists in this world. Gaduk Singh was already stricken in place. Suddenly he stared at Chu Yang with eyes full of grief. You actually want to sell these blades? You actually want to sell the dreams of the world's martial artists? He stared, approaching Chu Yang step by step, the muscles on his face cramping, eyes suddenly bulging out like a frog's and then suddenly narrowed, with his lips trembling, roaring suddenly, "Are you still human?" Chu Yang was thoroughly stunned. Chu Yang nearly fainted. "I only just wanted to use these blades as a lure. That's all. How come it became me selling the dreams of the entire world's warriors? There's no need to be this serious, right? If I just sell these blades, then I would actually become the enemy of all the martial artists in the world. If that's really the case, then there really is no way to continue living this life." Chu Yang fell silent for a while, before finally finding an excuse. "Gaduk Singh, why do you want to pawn your beloved sword?" I need to eat." Gaduk Singh's mind wasn't quite able to follow. He didn't know why the other side brought this up. "Yes, you need to eat, therefore you pawned the sword that you love more than your life." Chu Yang nodded, pointing to his own nose and said, "But what about me? Did you even think about how I also want to eat? If I don't eat, then I will starve to death as well. I'm the same as you, understand? If I don't sell swords, and I have no other skill, what do I eat? Do I eat people?" Chu Yang asked angrily. The more he said, the more he felt more righteous. He actually started to yell loudly. His spit almost sprayed onto Gaduk Singh's face. What Chu Yang said was pure nonsense. The plaque outside his door was made from pure gold and silver. How could he even be worried about eating? But Gaduk Singh apparently did not notice, or did not remember it. Looking at Chu Yang's upset appearance, he could not help but be tongue-tied. Only now did he realize that this guy opposite of him also need to eat. Although you have not displayed your martial abilities yet, but I cannot see through your cultivation. Gaduk Singh finally thought of something to say. With your skills, why do you not steal and rob? At least with that you can fill your stomach, right? That is far better than selling these divine blades. Your mother's fart. Chu Yang, filling with indignation, roared out with righteousness, am I, Chu Yang, one of those types of people? These words of yours are an insult to my persistence, an insult to my spirit, a degradation of my will, the raping of my character. I thought that you look like a dignified man, but I never thought that you were this kind of trash. Bah. The last words were literally sprayed out. Gaduk Singh's face was covered with saliva. What Gaduk Singh had just asked of Chu Yang was the same as the one that Chu Yang had asked of Duga Crossing. At that time Chu Yang was harshly lectured by Gaduk Singh, but now having been asked by Gaduk Singh, Chu Yang had repaid him back with interest, and couldn't help but feel great in his heart. Goddamn, who in the previous and this life would have dared to criticize the soaring dragon sword king like this? I dared. When he remembered his earlier reply, Gaduk Singh suddenly became a bit ashamed. Of course, do not impose on others what you would not do yourself. Since even he would not do such things, then how would this upright youth in front of him do them? He sat in this room of the shop which from the top to the bottom, from the inside to the outside, were all made possible by the money that Chu Yang had stolen, and couldn't help but feel respect. So the other side was the same as him, a real man with conviction and firmness. DLN, lol. After all, do they not say that on no road are you alone? Who says that I am stupid in my beliefs? Isn't this a fellow traveler right in front of my eyes? Although Gaduk Singh was mercilessly reprimanded by the other, he suddenly felt that he could really get along with this youth before him. The feeling of meeting a kindred spirit. But even if it's for food. Gaduk Singh looked at the blades. His heart couldn't help but feel extreme pain. The muscles of his face twitched. The thought that these type of divine weapons had to be sold was really heart-aching. This was not a pawn shop. Once sold, that meant it will be completely lost. This thing. How about taking a longer perspective? Gaduk Singh cautiously asked, Elder Brother Chu, a precious sword like this, and being people who love swords, we should at least look for a good home for them, if money is not yet that tight. I mean, if you can still at least keep living. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and sighed. Then according to you, what should be done? Gaduk Singh was stunned. How about this? I give custody of these weapons to you, and you sell them? Chu Yang suddenly had a flash of inspiration, and could not help but become excited all of the suddenly. You have nothing to do anyways. How about you just become an employee here? This way you don't have to pawn your sword anymore, and you also get to eat food and a place to live. The most important thing is, of course, that you can also find a suitable master for these divine weapons, not letting them gather dust somewhere. This is a win-win situation. Elder Brother Gu, what do you think? Gaduk Singh was confused. He really couldn't think of how, with just some words, he was going to become someone else's employee. But this also seemed like a viable plan. His reason for coming out alone was just to escape. Since it's to escape, then is not escaping anywhere still escaping? Thinking about the reason he ran away from home, Gaduk Singh could not help but let loose a deep sigh. What should I even do? What? Do you not agree? Chu Yang asked nervously. It's not that I don't agree, but Gaduk Singh seemed to have something that he couldn't say. Since it's not that you don't agree, then let's just do it this way. Chu Yang interrupted his words, and emphatically concluded the matter. Elder Brother Gu, from now on we are one family. From now on, in this store, everything you say will count. Whoever you say we sell to, then that's who we will sell it to. You see, I actually don't know much about this line of work anyways. This remark of Chu Yang's was the truth. He really doesn't understand this line of work. He also didn't mind using this line to make Gaduk Singh stay. As long as you stay, how can you ever run out from the center of my palm? If something happens to the store, can you not care about it? If you dare not care, then just watch me hand these swords to some beggars. I will see if your heart aches or not. Since my heart is not going to ache, with the Nine Tribulations Sword in hand. If I want, how many more can I make? Consequently, under Chu Yang's honeyed words and outright lies, Guduk confusedly stayed, becoming Chu Yang's employee. Indeed, this guy was sword addict, and while he was already this old, this was the first time he had ever left his home. Plus it was sneaking out as well. He had no Jiang who experienced to fall back on. Falling into the trap set by Chu Yang, an old fox who had experienced 2 lifetimes, naturally there was no other road for him. One had to concede that the young ones really are good. Good and easy to cheat. Naturally, the biggest reason was that Guduk simply could not see through Chu Yang's cultivation. In his mind, anyone whose cultivation he can't see through, then their skill level would naturally be higher than his own. Being the employee of such an expert, and at the same time achieving his purpose of escaping from his family. This didn't seem to be all that bad and was not shameful as well. After he wolfed down the food Chu Yang had brought out, Chu Yang had already deftly cleaned out a room and stuffed him inside for the night. Only after the night had passed did Guduk ask Chu Yang, puzzled, "There's something that isn't right here. What is it?" Chu Yang rubbed his temples, thinking, could it be that this guy's brain suddenly started working? "Elder brother Chu, you only said about providing food and shelter, but what about wages?" Guduk stared and said, "You can't just make me work for free, right? After all, I'm still a sword. At least I should still get a few silvers each month, right?" It looks like that within this guy's heart there was still some unwillingness. Chu Yang was madly dizzy for a moment. "Elder brother Gu, in that room of yours, there are 2 cabinets. Did you see them?" Guduk nodded his head. "Those cabinets hold all my belongings and it's not locked." Chu Yang had a look of sincerity. "Elder brother Gu, although the first time we meet and our paths never crossed before, but we've hit it off right at the beginning, thus I am entrusting all the belongings in my life into your hands." Guduk hesitated for a moment, then turned and ran inside. After a while, from the room came sounds of screaming. Subsequently, you could see that this young master of the Gu family came out with shaking hands, moved to the extreme. "Elder brother Chu. You actually trust me this much?" At the moment he opened those cabinet drawers, even a person who was used to seeing riches like Guduk was shocked. Their shine was almost blinding. Gold pieces, gold nuggets, gold bricks. All gold. There was also a thick stack of banknotes. In this instant, young Master Gu's head was spinning. For a second, he thought he has fallen into the vault of a wealthy mogul. Additionally, he did not expect that Chu Yang had arranged for him to sleep in this room filled with riches, and without any locks at that. The feeling of being trusted when you were at the end of your rope was truly great, truly warm. Chu Yang earnestly raised his hand. "Brother Gu, we have only just met, but we have become close friends. No need to talk about formalities," he thought to himself. "Besides those, I still have a few more cabinets like that, all filled riches ransacked from more than a dozen wealthy houses. How could there not be a lot? It's just that I am not using them yet." Guduk nodded his head repeatedly. Suddenly, a question rose from his head. "Elder brother Chu, if you already have so much money, why do you still want to sell these divine weapons?" The night before he insisted that if he did not sell these weapons then there would be no food to eat. However, with the gold, silver and banknotes piled up in the cabinets like this, how could he explain himself? This stockpile was enough for 3 lifetimes of living in wealth and debauchery. How could it be said that there would be no food? Was this not laughable? "Sorry, elder brother Gu, I lied to you last night." Chu Yang acted as if his ruse had succeeded. "Elder brother Gu, this type of divine sword. Do you think I would just sell it? I saw that it was gathering dust and felt bad for it. So I put it upon myself to find all of them worthy owners." Chu Yang sighed. Such a divine sword should be in the hands of the right people. Killing under the heavens, arrogantly traversing Jianghu, bathing in the wind and rain of blood. This is how it can show its unmatched character. This is the destiny a divine weapon deserves. For a person to find the right sword for them is already difficult, but for a sword to find the right owner, it is twice as difficult. It is rare to find someone like-minded like elder brother Gu, so I secretly thought I could now be a little lazy. DLN, fooled you into working for me. I see. Gaduk Singh laughed. The knot was undone, making him laugh freely. In his heart there suddenly rose the feeling of here meeting a like-minded friend. These divine weapons were no longer items for sale. Chu Yang had agreed with me because he valued my worth. It should be noted that the feelings developed after a good impression is definitely different. Because once there is such warm feelings, even if the other person says something wrong, you would still find some excuse for it. Moreover, you would accept such reasoning comfortably. Of course, finding the right owner for the divine sword is my desire, but I also need to find enough money to eat. Chu smiled. Moreover, if the owner of the sword did not pay a great price for it, then he would surely not cherish it. Gaduk Singh nodded sympathetically and said, "That's true. I remember when I got Black Dragon, I did go through a lot of hardships." The two looked at each other and laughed. Compared with the Black Dragon Sword Emperor who traversed under the heavens in the previous life, the current Gaduk Singh was no doubt less wise, more naive and youthfully impulsive. Chu Yang naturally knew how valuable the person in front of him was. Gaduk Singh's stubbornness, love for swords, steadfast principles and obstinate attitude had not changed from his past life. This person was definitely a worthy friend. Chu Yang was not committed to swords like Gaduk Singh was, because, to him, such commitment was foolish. But this did not stop him from admiring Gaduk Singh. This difference in characteristics was the reason why, in his previous life, Chu Yang became a revered martial artist and not a revered sword artist. Even though he used a sword, his abilities were not that of swords alone. "Elder brother Gu, how do my swords compare to your Black Dragon?" Chu Yang asked. "In terms of sharpness, they greatly exceed my Black Dragon. In terms of toughness, they also exceed my Black Dragon." Gaduk Singh thought carefully and replied, "But in my heart, Black Dragon is unique. These swords of yours, even though they are rare divine weapons, I feel as if something is missing. If I have to choose, I would choose my Black Dragon." Gaduk Singh's fingers gently rubbed the sword hilt at his waist lovingly. His eyes showed a sincere feeling like a youth deep in love. While this love was not one that could make countries fall or topple citadels like the famed beauties, it was the only one that could toggle his heartstrings. Of course, he would certainly appreciate and marvel at other beauties, but if he has to find a partner for life, there was only one. DLN, still talking about Black Dragon here. Missing something? Chu Yang's heart jumped. Gaduk Singh's senses were definitely accurate. At first glance, these swords were extremely sharp, but they really do lack something. Because all the essence of the material was already devoured by Nine Tribulations Sword, and that was the true spirituality of a divine sword. Without essence, these swords were just sticks of steel pure enough to scare people. They definitely would not become divine weapons of legends, because they would never be able to have spirituality. A sword with spirituality, after killing and bathing in blood, would grow in spiritual aura. However, even if these swords killed the entire world, they would still remain as sticks of steel only. That tiny difference, only at the level of Sword King would it become a large gap. Before reaching that realm, no one could recognize this discrepancy. But Gaduk Singh was only a sword great master, yet with his keen intuition, could feel that something was wrong with these swords. Elder brother Gu, this is not why I opened Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Chu Yang thought for a moment and said, I have another reason, but Heavenly Armament Pavilion must remain. It is complicated and dangerous, so I need your help. Chu Yang smiled. Actually, since the beginning, I did not expect that someone like you would come here. But now that you are here, I will not let you go. I trust you, and I especially trust my judgment. Gaduk Singh flashed a sincere smile and said, good. Only one word, but that was Gaduk Singh's promise. He could feel that Chu Yang's words, while he still did not reveal everything, were completely from the bottom of his heart. So he readily agreed. No matter what, 1. The person in front of him looked like a good person, and 2. This person helped him during the toughest time of his life. That was enough. The two smiled and two palms clapped together. DLN, first high five in history. No one could have thought that this clap would become a legend of 9 heavens later. I come from a great family of the Gu family clan. I am telling you this, but I am not sure if you can understand the weight of the words Gu family clan. In truth, in all of lower 3 heavens, There are probably very few people who know about the Ge family clan's power. Gaduk Singh held up his cup of wine, a ray of deep nostalgia escaped his eyes. He continued, I am the adopted son of the head of the clan. After my birth parents suddenly died, my foster father took me in and cared for me with all his heart. Chu Yang nodded and thought to himself, if I don't know about Ge family clan, then who would? Such a large clan like that, if I still do not know, then I might as well just bang my head against the wall and die. Ah, so the rumors were right. The future successor of the Ge family clan was really only an adopted son of Master Ge, not his biological child. My foster father has one daughter and two sons. Gaduk Singh continued, be immersed in his memories. My two foster brothers always stayed away from me. I truly never thought about competing with them and taking what's theirs, so I remain submissive. I know that I am only an adopted child of the family, and core power of the family would never belong to me. Even if I succeed in the future and protect this clan, not letting anyone hurt them, I still would not become the head of the clan. Gaduk Singh smiled. His smile seemed to bloom from his cold countenance, making the whole thing incongruous. Then why did you run away from home? My foster father's daughter is 1 year older than me. It was because of her that I left home. Gaduk Singh's gaze seemed to hold bittersweet emotions when he mentioned this girl. Since we were little, Sister Xiao Miao, TLN, nickname for Ge Miaoling, means little meow, and it's actually older sister. But I think older sister little meow is weird and a mouthful, was my guardian angel. Regardless of any problems, Sister Xiao Miao always covered for me. Each time my two foster brothers gave me trouble, it was Sister Xiao Miao who stood up for me. What I did not understand, she taught me. What I could not get, she helped me. For my sake, she even went against the clan's head elder, against her own brothers. Growing up, I was always sheltered under her wings, living peacefully without any worries. Since I was little, each time I was preparing for a breakthrough to the next level, it was her who went to the family's medicinal herb garden and treasure pavilion to find elixirs to help me break through. Many of the elixirs were heaven-sent, rare, priceless treasures. It was because of these priceless treasures and Sister Xiaomia's constant care that a talent like me became what I am today. My cultivation path was smooth sailing, without any bottlenecks. If I hit a lull, then the power of miracle pills and elixirs turned all obstacles into nothing. All those elixirs that Sister Xiaomiao stole, many of them were not even accessible to my foster father and the other elders. That's why Sister Xiaomiao suffered countless punishments because of me. As for me, I was clueless and did not know anything. Each time she brought the elixirs, Sister Xiaomiao always told me that these were just sitting around the house, and I took them all like an idiot. Chu Yang quietly listened. He finally understood why Gaduk Singh became such a legend in cultivation at a young age in the previous life. This was the reason. With the powerful human and material resources of the great Ge family clan, could the elixirs collect be ordinary? Gaduk Singh had consumed such a huge amount of elixirs like that. It would be strange if his cultivation speed was not fast. We slowly grew up, and because of Sister Xiaomiao fearlessness, she never stopped supplying me with elixirs. From those, my cultivation speed surpassed all my peers. One breakthrough after another, I became a heaven-sent talent that all members of the clan noticed. But little did they know that because of this heaven-sent talent, Sister Xiaomiao had put out so much effort and suffered so many injustices. Even I was proud and arrogant about my talent. I was really too heartless. In Gaduk Singh's eyes there appeared a clear bright flash. He suddenly tilted his neck and finished his cup of wine in one gulp. He immediately filled it up again. Until one day, Sister Miaoling, in order to help me break through Sword Great Master, went and took the family's treasure, purple sky fungus. This made the whole family furious. Gaduk Singh suddenly punched himself hard in the head. Right at the moment I broke through Sword Great Master, my foster father angrily broke one of Sister Xiaomiao's legs and locked her up. Because of this, my two foster brothers resented me even more and came to find me to dump their anger. Because I did not know what happened, I gave them a beating. Afterward, they angrily yelled, "You keep hiding behind a woman, don't you feel embarrassed? Today, you have made Miaoling this miserable. Don't you even feel a little guilty?" Shocked, I chased after them for an explanation. This time they did not hold anything back and told me everything. Drop by drop, Gaduk Singh's tears felt into the wine cup. When I went to find my foster father, he sighed and told me that because Sister Xiaomiao took the family's treasure, the clan's head elder decided to lock her in Dragon Prison Cave. Plus, the term was forever. Purple sky fungus was the clan's treasure. They were waiting for the moment the head elder to reach Martial Emperor to use. If successful, it would help the clan become number one. And after that they would advance into upper three heavens, broaden the clan's legacy. Sister Xiaomiao had stolen it for me and I ate it all. That was how decades of the clan's preparation was ruined. To the entire clan, this was unforgivable. If another family's clan at the same level as ours had someone break through Martial Emperor, then the Ge family's clan would be lost. In giving me purple sky fungus, Sister Xiaomiao might as well have cut off all ties with the family. This error was inexcusable. Chu Yang sighed deeply. At this moment, Gaduk Singh's description of Ge Miaoling made Chu Yang think about Mo King Wu. These two women were apparently very similar. For their love, they ignored everything. In their eyes, besides their love, there was nothing else worthy of their attention. I only had one chance to see her with my foster father's permission. From what I learned, she was sent to Dragon Prison Cave after that. We were separated by a purple-colored metal fence. At that time, I cried and cried until my inside felt as if it has broken to pieces. I asked her why she was so foolish. Why? Because of me? It was not worth it. Really not worth it. Gaduk Singh tears poured out. He picked up the wine gourd and drank in madness. His tears and the wine mixed together as they poured into his mouth. Chu Yang sighed and quietly handed Gaduk Singh another wine gourd. Bam! With burning red eyes, Gaduk Singh slammed the empty wine gourd on the table. At that time, Sister Xiaomiao said to me, "Fool, you are such a fool." She said, "When you were little, I saw you as my brother and especially treasured you. So I gave you everything that was good. But when we grew up, I no longer saw you as my brother." When Sister Xiaomiao said these words, her heart palpitated. She looked at me for a long time and smiled sadly. "Forget it. You should leave. It's nothing. This is the time I need to go in closed-door cultivation anyway." "Foolish brother, you are not young anymore. You should start a family." "Too bad Sister Xiaomiao cannot drink at your wedding." "Go. You should go. Don't come here anymore. Just pretend you never had this." Sister Xiaomiao. After that, Sister Xiaomiao turned and went into Dragon Prison Cave. Gaduk Singh became scary. His whole body shook. In my heart, Sister Xiaomiao is no different from an angel. Gaduk Singh trembled. I love her. I adore her. But after she walked into Dragon Prison Cave, I discovered that my heart became empty. There is nothing in life more important than her. I cannot live without her. I cannot live without her. Ah! Gaduk Singh gave a low roar and looked up. Tears poured down his face like torrential rain. But she is now locked up in Dragon Prison Cave. That mistake was too big. I am afraid she may not be able to come out. In the end, is there some conditions in which she could be released? Finding another purple sky fungus? Chu Yang asked with a calm gaze. It's no use. The head elder heard this news when he was in a key moment of his breakthrough. His mind was in shock and he spit up blood. Not only his breakthrough was unsuccessful, his cultivation actually decreased. He would not have a chance at breaking through Martial Emperor again. Besides the head elder, other people in our family clan cannot reach that level. What did your foster father say? Then, my foster father also had no other way. Gaduk Singh looked blankly into the empty space in front of him. His tears ran down, and like that, I lived as if I was dead for 2 years. In that time, my foster father arranged a marriage for me. Chu Yang suddenly understood. It seemed this soaring dragon sword king was not only crazy about swords, he was also crazy in love. Anyway, even if I have to live a lonely life, I would still not be able to make it up to Sister Xiaomiao. Gaduk Singh grinded his teeth, so I immediately ran away. No wonder this person cultivated like crazy in the previous life. With such fast advancement, he wanted to use his own ability to break through to Sword Emperor and free Miaoling. Chu Yang felt sad inside all of a sudden. Even if Gaduxing was a heaven-sent talent and had excellent qualifications, he would be at least 60 years old by the time he becomes Sword Emperor. DLN, normally. And that girl who would spend her youth suffering inside Dragon Prison Cave was actually 1 year older than him. In the end, the best years of both their lives would be wasted and could not be taken back. If I want to get Sister Xiaomiao out of that cave, then I have to reach the realm of Sword Emperor. But that is an extremely difficult task. And Sister Xiaomiao is already 21 this year. Gaduxing said in despair, even if I really wanted to achieve that realm, I would need at least another 3 or 4 decades. In those 3 or 4 decades, how could Sister Xiaomiao bear it? How could she bear it? Chu Yang looked up and said thoughtfully, this problem is not necessarily unsolvable. Do you have a way? Gaduxing quickly stood up and banged his body against the table, spilling the cups of wine on it. His eyes widened in anticipation. Huh? Chu Yang calmly nodded and said, Elder Brother Gu, you are involved in this situation so you can't see it. The foundation of your cultivation is in sword arts, right? You have incredible insights, Elder Brother Chu. Gaduxing showed a look of surprise. It was true that he concentrated only on sword arts cultivation and did not pay attention to any others. This was how he could stay focused and advance with the quickest speed. However, no one had ever said something like that to him. This youth in front of him might have many commendable characteristics, but he was still very young. How could he have such potent insights? Even if he was a martial artist of higher ranking than mine, how could he recognize that the basis of my cultivation is sword arts without actually battling with me? How could he know this? Since you took sword arts as your foundation, you only need to know one phrase. The sword moves with side stroke. DLN, idiom for unexpected winning move. Chu Yang smiled. This unexpected winning move can even cause injuries to you, but once you make your move, it would definitely kill. Yes, but this is cultivation. What do I need to do to achieve this? Gaduxing frowned and thought. Elder Brother Gu, how many people have you killed? Chu Yang raised his brows. Kill people? Gaduxing's face changed color. He immediately took a deep breath and said, 7 bastards. Too few. To become powerful you need to kill enough for a mountain of dried bones. Moreover, this cultivation path is against the natural order. If you want to become Sword Emperor, you need to spend your whole life going through endless wind and rain of blood to achieve that realm. Chu Yang raised his brows. The light in his eyes radiated. Gaduxing, if you trust me and place your entire cultivation process in my hands, I definitely can help you achieve the realm of Sword Emperor within 10 years. 10 years. Gaduxing's 2 eyes widened, reflecting dazzling rays of light. 10 years was not exactly short, but compared to 30 to 40 years, it was certainly much quicker. Besides, 10 years from now he would only be 30 years old. It would not be too late. But, is this true? Chu Yang did not say anything. He only quietly smiled as if he had already given Gaduxing an answer. I am willing. Gaduxing said decidedly, if I could free Sister Xiaomiao in the shortest amount of time, then not just 10 years, but I would willing to hand over my entire life to you without any hesitations. Good. The deal is done. Chu Yang held out his hand. You only need to listen to me and, in about 10 years, I will help the two of you reunite. During this time period, let's have a happy cooperation. What should I do now? Gaduxing asked. If you are worried revealing your identity, then don't. First, you can disguise your face a little. Chu Yang said casually, then, what you need to do is manage Heavenly Armament Pavilion in my stead and watch over these precious blades. For now, you need a good sleep and rest your head well. In the next 10 years, there will be rivers of blood by your sword. Your enemies will spread over the entire continent. You must struggle at border of life and death and break through in dangerous settings to achieve the unexpected winning move I just mentioned. This is a difficult road, one that you cannot turn back from. But I believe that you are prepared before proceeding. Everything is for the girl you love. Gmiaoling. When he heard those three words Gmiaoling, Gaduk Singh suddenly clenched his fists tightly and emitted a low groan from his throat like an injured animal. Only he knew that each mention of this name was like a stab at his heart. No way back. For Sister Xiao Miao, I have no need for a way back. Chu Yang went to the counter, and quickly grabbed paper and brush. After thinking for a moment, he immediately started to write something on the paper. Seeing this, Gaduk Singh went over next to him and looked to see what he was writing. But in only a moment, Gaduk Singh's eyes widened. His eyeballs bulged like two eggs. Revered Berserker Sword Technique. Gaduk Singh said the four words on paper with great difficulties. After that he immediately looked up. His face showed trace of disbelief as he looked at Chu Yang. Could this be true? Revered Berserker Sword Technique was the quickest cultivation technique for sword arts. Once started, both body and mind had to stay completely focused until the appointed period. It cannot be stopped before then. This was also the most extreme method of cultivation. Either the body would be completely destroyed or the sword artist would increase level after level. Cultivating Revered Berserker Sword Technique can end in success or death. There was no third possibility. According to legends, a few hundred years ago, this sword technique was created by Sword King Feng Xin, DLN, Closed Heart. He was called Closed Heart, but he should in fact have been called Crazy Heart. Everyone agreed that the person who created this type of sword technique must be a madman. Chu Yang got this sword technique in his previous life. During that time, in Middle Three Heavens, someone had discovered the burial place of Sword King Feng Xin. From there, they found this sword technique. But after studying it over for a long time, that person realized that even though this sword technique could help increase cultivation extremely fast, once you reach the last stage of cultivation, you would become a crazy person. Sword King Feng Xin also went crazy and died because of cultivating this sword technique. Many people wanted to change and turn this useless sword technique into a treasure, but no one was successful. That was why Revered Berserker Sword Technique was tossed aside. Even if the sword technique is very powerful, it would be useless when the cultivator becomes crazy. But the content of this sword technique was indeed handed down from Middle Three Heavens. One day, after carefully looking at it, Chu Yang immediately discovered that Revered Berserker Sword Technique and the verse within Nine Tribulations Sword's third fragment were a little similar. The thing was, Revered Berserker Sword Technique was by far inferior. However, by changing a few key positions in the verse of Berserker Sword Technique, it could be used for cultivation normally. Moreover, cultivating with this new verse will cause speed of advancement to be extremely fast, like crazy. But Revered Berserker Sword Technique's power was not as strong as Nine Tribulations Sword, by more than one grade. Therefore, Chu Yang never bothered cultivating it. However, it did leave a deep impression within him. And right now, it had a use. For a person who loved swords to a fault like Gaduk Singh, this sword technique was perfect. Take it. Chu Yang finished writing the last word. He held up the paper still wet with ink and blew on it a few times before giving it to Gaduk Crossing. This was an improved Revered Berserker Sword Technique. At this point, one only needed perseverance. Gaduk Singh received the sword technique with trembling hands. This delicate paper had allowed him to find hope in helping Miao Ling quicker. How could anyone not be excited? When Chu Yang said he could help him quickly fulfill his wish, Gaduk Singh had his doubts. Plus his thought was, I am just avoiding a forced marriage, and after all, cultivation was the same wherever. But right now he had absolute faith. This sword technique is enough to help you break through Revered Sword Artist in a year. But you can only cultivate to that point and you must stop. Otherwise, you can become immersed in it and lose your sanity. Chu Yang said slowly. His eyes emitted a sharp brilliance. Plus, after you break through Revered Sword Artist, we still have other ways for you to quickly increase your cultivation. The path of cultivation must be taken one step at a time. I believe you also understand this principle. It's enough. This is already enough. Gaduk Singh said as he trembled, thank you. Thank you. Even to his death, He could not believe that when he reached the end of his road, such a big gift like this would drop down from the heavens. Chu Yang's appearance to Gaduk Singh was like a floating log to a drowning person. This is my biggest hope for quickly saving Sister Xiaomiao from her suffering. Gaduk Singh would sooner die 10,000 deaths than miss this opportunity. Chu Yang smiled. He could finally relax. Of course, he did this because he believed in Gaduk Singh's incredible abilities. But the biggest reason, at the moment, was the love between Gaduk Singh and Gamiao Ling. That kind of love was capable of touching the softest spot in Chu Yang's heart. Mo King Wu. Such a love should never be let down. And loving women like Mo King Wu and Gamiao Ling should definitely never be let down. Just then, there was a voice from outside the door. "Excuse me. Is there anyone inside?" The two men looked at each other. And within an hour, they both jumped up. They have been drinking and talking since early this morning and completely neglected the business. It was now late in the morning, and Heavenly Armament Pavilion was not even open for business. "I will open the door, you clean up." Before Chu Yang could say anything else, Gaduk Singh quickly grabbed his precious revered berserker sword technique and ran into his room like a flash. "Mother." Chu Yang rolled his eyes and quickly grabbed the drinking mess on the table and tossed it in another room. Then he dusted off his hands and went to open the door. The strong smell of alcohol rushed out the door the moment Chu Yang opened it. "Well, cough cack cack." A coughing fit suddenly broke out. In front of Heavenly Armament Pavilion was a young lady patiently waiting. But the sudden attack of the smell of alcohol in her face made her unconsciously frown. "Huh? You're here to buy swords?" Chu Yang's eyebrows pinched slightly. This young lady, even with Chu Yang's experience, was difficult to describe. She was not a beauty that would cause people to lose their minds over, whether it was nose, mouth, or eyes. They were all extremely ordinary. But in that extreme ordinariness, there hid a pull that could not be exactly pinpointed. If you only glanced at her in a crowd, then she would not leave any impressions at all. But if you looked at her a little longer, then you would immediately discover that this young lady had many differences from other people. Her face seemed simple at first glance, but after longer observation, everything was hazy. Her gaze seemed mysterious like a dream. Her countenance was calm and peaceful. She was clearly a woman, but, surprisingly, carried an aura of a mighty general. Standing in front of the door, even though her figure seemed delicate, anyone facing her would feel as if she was as fortified as a mountain, unmovable like large mountains and big rivers. Like that, she stood alone in front of Heavenly Armament Pavilion. From the looks of it, she had probably been there for a long time ago. And even though Heavenly Armament Pavilion did not open for such a long time, she was in no hurry. Her countenance seemed indifferent. This was clearly a young lady of only 17 or 18 years old. But Chu Yang felt as if she was extremely experienced. Moreover, her eyes suddenly gave Chu Yang a feeling of familiarity, as if they have already met somewhere. "Excuse me, are you the shopkeeper of Heavenly Armament Pavilion?" The young lady's clear gaze looked straight at Chu Yang's. "Yes, what do you need?" "Ah, I came to see if what you called divine weapons were actually worthy of their name." The young lady said faintly, "Will you not invite your customer in for a sit-down?" "Oh, you want to come in? You have read the notices at the entrance, right?" "Rest assured, silver and gold is not an issue. It's not as if I don't have divine weapons either." "Ha ha ha, but according to the rules of business, I have the right to see what you are selling, so I can judge if they are indeed valuable or just empty boasts. If they are not worthy, then I would not need to spend my money. Of course." The young lady clasped her hands behind her back and casually walked into Heavenly Armament Pavilion. It was the kind of naturally comfortable attitude she would have if she were walking around her backyard. Chu Yang frowned. There was a mysterious aura on this young lady. In his 2 lifetimes, he had met many women and never once had encountered such a special aura. This was definitely different. "These are the divine weapons you were referring to?" The young lady stood in front of the wall with 4 weapons hanging with her hands behind her back. With her head slightly tilted upward, she looked without any other actions. Chu Yang could not understand why, but he suddenly felt as if she was watching over an entire world of her own, like a king watching over his territory, his own people. Chu Yang's mind became more and confused. She is clearly just a young lady. How could these strange feelings emerge like this? They are A voice answered her, but it was not Chu Yang's. Xing quietly appeared at the corner of the room. His eyes icily stared at this young lady. Even though his face was now a little changed, it kept its iciness as before. It was still essentially expressionless. He did not care to change his countenance because of some young lady. I can see them, right? With the sudden appearance of another person in the store, this young lady, unexpectedly, did not show any surprise and just asked casually, "Buying swords here? Your status does not matter. It also does not matter how much gold and silver you have. It depends on who you are as a person." Xing said coldly, "We'll see if you are suitable for these weapons. If you are not suitable, then even with a whole nation's wealth, you cannot take any weapons away." "Oh, the sword is choosing the master?" the young lady said slowly and softly. "In any case, you want to choose the people and I want to choose the sword. If a sword is not worthy, I would not take it even if you begged me." These words were definitely aimed at antagonizing Xing. After that, the young lady gently reached up and brought the long sword down from the wall. The moment she held it in her hand, she was, of course, surprised by the weight of the long sword. Therefore her arms dropped a bit. Compared to other long swords, this one was 3 times heavier. It was not until she had a total grip on the sword that her face showed a look of surprise. Long sword. Chu Yang and Xing looked at each other. Both of them were astonished. Normally, if a young lady was looking for a sword, then she would most likely choose a light and portable one. In this aspect, the short sword was much better than the long sword. Moreover, it was more elegant and more suitable for females to carry. Plus, this long sword looked very crude on the outside, full of masculine characteristics. The two did not expect this young lady to look at the long sword first. Then there was a clang, and the sword emerged from its sheath. A ray of radiance shot out. The girl squinted her eyes and praised, "Good sword." After that she slowly pulled the whole sword out of its sheath. With arms at the same level as her shoulder, she slightly tilted the sword, admiring it. Only seeing the angle she was using to look at the sword, Chu Yang and Xing recognized that this girl was a connoisseur. Even though she was definitely not an expert sword artist, her knowledge and understanding of swords was probably not inferior to the two of them. Chu Yang searched his memory and brought out all the females he met in the previous life on this, but could not find anyone who fit the characteristics of the young lady in front of him right now. As for Xing, even though his countenance seemed hard and icy, he was also silently going through all the young ladies from the large families in Middle Three Heavens. After that he was also surprised to discover that those young ladies were probably not as graceful as the person in front of him this moment. This strange young lady, who is she? DLN, I think we all know this one. There was a soft sheen on the sword blade, as if there were small waves of light rolling on it. With sword in one hand, the young lady flicked out a thread from the other. The thread gently touched the sword blade, and the long sword vibrated. A clear and melodious sound rang out and reverberated throughout the whole room for a long while. It really is a divine weapon, the young lady praised. She immediately put the long sword back in its sheath and brought down the great dagger. When she was finally done with looking at all 4 weapons, she looked up at Chu Yang. On the side, Chu Yang might have seemed calm, but he was astonished on the inside. Since beginning to end, this young lady was surprisingly calm. Even though she was holding a rare weapon in her hand, her eyes never flinched. Certain expressions like scared, surprised, greedy, emotional, that normally appeared during situations like this, were not shown in the eyes of this young lady. True to her words, she simply looked over the weapons. Everything was so very ordinary. Chu Yang could not avoid being aghast. Such state of mind, such cultivation. Was this really just a young lady? What is your pricing? The young lady seemed as if she was thinking about something. When she asked this question, she looked a little preoccupied. On the other hand, Chu Yang was currently trying to figure out this young lady's identity. Looking at her demeanors, each time she lifted her arms or moved her legs, seemed to carry an air of a superior being, as if giving orders was a normalcy for her. Plus her whole body seemed to exude an innate elegance. She was probably a descendant of some royal family, or at least of royal blood. The strange thing was, How could a person like this went out without any guards at her side? This was unbelievable. Could Ironcloud Citadel's security be that good? Before, Gaduk Singh has wandered in here by himself, and now there was a young lady who, strange enough, also did the same. Regardless, if Chu Yang had dared to hang up his heavenly armament pavilion sign, then he was already prepared to receive all sorts of troublemakers. Then he would be able to celebrate in the publicity and use it to advertise Heavenly Armament Pavilion. And finally, his divine weapons would make Heavenly Armament Pavilion the talk of Ironcloud Citadel and on the front line. Now that he was thinking about it, with the exception of the hooligans coming to make trouble on opening day, no one else had come along. The likes of money-spending young masters, unruly young ladies, arrogant aristocrats, and royal family members who wanted to show off that Chu Yang counted on never showed up. In this crowded capital where you can step on 3 people with one step, he could not believe how empty it was these past few days. How very odd. Each blade is 100,000 gold tals. Or you can put out some precious treasures to trade. Things such as 7-star white magnolia, 9-leaf spirit root, purple air spirit star. I am not very particular. If not those, then purple crystal jade, legendary gold iron, star steel, nightmare silver, and diamond sand would also do. 18,000 pounds of each should be enough. Payment would be expected with delivery of goods. Chu Yang looked at her with an amused gaze. She clearly did not bring any gold or silver, so he named an astronomical price. This price, even for a country, was gigantic. These were the items the sword spirit told him were necessary for leveling up. And now he brought the whole thing out as the price, giving the young lady a severe shock. Even though her perseverance was more than that of an average person and her mind was firm. But meeting this guy's lion mouth, she could not control her anger. Even that dead-face Gaduk Singh who was screaming about not selling these 4 divine weapons was now speechless with wide gaping mouth. With that kind of pricing the term highway robbery would not even fit. It was more like killing and taking an entire country's treasury. You don't want to sell, right? Those 2 eyes clear as autumn water now turned cold and looked at Chu Yang. But she was really speaking out the words in Gaduk Singh's mind. Chu Yang smiled and took out a glistening gold bar. After that, he grabbed the sword. He threw the gold bar on the table and swung the sword down. With a pow, it was as if a sharp knife cut through a piece of tofu. As the young lady stared in disbelief, a gold bar turned into more than a dozen gold leaves in just a few seconds. The table was spangled with their golden radiance. After that, Chu Yang reached out his right hand and grasped for a large steel block of about a few £100. It was originally standing next to the door, but now it has reached the side of his foot. He pointed the long sword down, tip first, above the steel block and gently dropped it. The sword fell down with the tip piercing straight through the block. Sloosh! The long sword quietly pierced deep into the steel block, burying about half of the blade, leaving only about a foot of the blade shaking slightly in the bright sunlight that came into the room, and shining with a soft luster. A look of shock was exposed in the young lady's eyes. Is it worth the price? Chu Yang crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled as he asked. The young lady stared at the sword, her eyes flashed with eagerness. It was true that Ironcloud currently lacked divine weapons. But she absolutely did not expect that at this moment, in front of her very eyes, there appeared such a kind of weapon that only existed in legends. Heavenly Armament Pavilion. It truly deserved the name Heavenly Armament. Worth the price. A divine sword like that is truly a priceless treasure. No matter how much money there is, it would still be difficult to buy it. A voice suddenly rang out like thunder. With that voice was a stately figure that suddenly appeared behind the young lady. The moment that voice sounded, both Chu Yang and Gaduk Singh looked at each other in shock. This was because they did not expect that their senses were not able to detect when the person had arrived. In that case, did it not mean that this person's cultivation was at least beyond martial great master? This person was brawny with a square face. His eyes were calm but extremely sharp. His brows were large and thick. His mouth was wide, and his nose was lion-like. On his jawline was a 3-part black beard that slightly swung back and forth. He simply stood there with his wide shoulders, giving one the sense that he was carrying the world on them. His body emitted a powerful aura that was enough to send thousands of soldiers running. Without needing an introduction, Chu Yang and Gaduk Singh immediately recognized this man. In this entire lower three heavens, besides the number one famed general, Tai Longcheng, no other individual could have such a powerful air like this, and only Tai Longcheng could stand as he pleased and give the feeling of an impregnable fortress, like 1,000 miles of endless mountains that armies would even avoid. The head of Iron Cloud's military, one of the two pillars that held up the heavens for Iron Cloud Nation, a scent of war in the 9 heavens continents, Tai Longcheng. At this time, Chu Yang finally understood why a busy street suddenly became extremely quiet, abnormally quiet. So, since who knows when, a team of elite soldiers in disguise had strictly kept the entire street separated from the rest of the citadel. An entire long, crowded, noisy street was currently quiet to the point a pin drop could be heard. At the main door of Heavenly Armament Pavilion, 2 people stood emotionless on each side watching the situation inside. Even though he could not discover anything further, Chu Yang was sure that the back door and the roof also had people. Moreover, masters, it really is a good sword. Tai Longcheng's sharp, cold gaze glanced at the swaying sword on the steel block and said loudly. After that, he immediately turned and looked at the young lady. Unexpectedly, his expression became soft and completely different from earlier. Why did you come here? After that, he asked more specifically, why did you come here alone? I just wanted to see. The young lady calmly smiled. This Heavenly Armament Pavilion, I was really curious about it. Where are your bodyguards? Tai Longcheng's thick eyebrows pinched together. The coldness in his eyes rose up dangerously. How do those bastards do their work? I cannot believe they dared let you go out by yourself like this. Wait till I get back, I will chop them up and feed them to the dogs. I snuck out. It has nothing to do with them. The young lady slightly shook Tai Longcheng's shoulder, pleading, Second uncle, I only have this one little secret left, only this one way to relax a bit. Tai Longcheng sighed, and looked at the young lady with affection and sorrow. He seemed to have let the issue go as he turned to Chu Yang. Damn little man, these 2 swords and 2 sabers, I will buy. Chu Yang hesitated, then asked what are you buying them with? Of course I will not buy them with gold. Tai Longcheng's eyes narrowed as he squeezed out each word, buying it with your life. Would this price be enough? After hearing these words, the black outfitted people at the door immediately turned and glared at Chu Yang. Chu Yang instantly felt an icy killing aura locking on him. These words of Tai Longcheng were like a ball of explosives that broke his levy, and the killing aura flooded into the room like a rushing tide. However, there was suddenly another killing aura that exploded next to Chu Yang. Compared to that of the black outfits, this killing aura was much more potent. 1 against 4, and not even a little deficient. At that same moment, Gaduk Singh quietly came right next to Chu Yang. Gaduk Singh's hand was already on the sword's hilt. His eyes were bright with a light that exposed a body of martial power that had been concentrated to the max. He carried a breathtaking air, but he was also perfectly calm at the same time. Gaduk Singh's killing aura and that of the 4 black outfits collided, making the front of Heavenly Armament Pavilion seemed like an ice cave. That chill even spilled out into half of the street in front. In Gaduk Singh's eyes, he did not care how powerful the opponent or his position was, because, to him, the lower 3 heavens will always be the lower 3 heavens. It could never be compared to the middle 3 heavens. Forget about general whatever. So what even if it was an emperor? Currently Chu Yang was his biggest backing and also his only hope to saving his sister Xiao Miao. Therefore, if these people wanted to cause trouble for Chu Yang, they would have to step over his dead body first. Who cares about consequences? If you people make one move, I will kill you. Tai Longcheng stared at Gaduk Singh with great surprise, and raised his arm to wave a signal to the back. The 4 killing auras immediately disappeared without a trace. Only then did Gaduk Singh grunt coldly and take back his own aura. His countenance returned back to an expressionless face, as he stood motionless behind Chu Yang. The 4 black outfits outside the door might have pulled back their killing aura, but their eyes still carefully watched Gaduk crossing. The fact that such young man like him was able to emit such a powerful killing aura made these 4 stunned. Very good. Tai Longcheng praised. but he did not reveal whether that praise was for Gaduxing or the sword. Afterward, he turned back to Chu Yang and spoke slowly. Since you opened Heavenly Armament Pavilion, this place was at risk of closing dozens of times. You should know that if I did not give orders to protect this shop early on, it would have already been reduced to dust and ashes. Why? Chu Yang asked, acting as if he was surprised. Internally, he was thinking, no wonder no one came, this damn old man secretly caused mischief. Old man, you ruined my plan, and dared to take credit, all because of these two words, heavenly armament. Tai Longcheng suddenly tilted his head and looked straight at Chu Yang. You openly put these two words on your shop's sign right on the biggest street of Ironcloud Citadel. This proved that you have given this much thought and that you have great insights. You have grasped the true weakness of Ironcloud Nation. I came here to see what your true motives are. In truth, even if this little shop was filled with divine weapons, I could care less. What motives? After hearing these words, the young lady next to Tai Longcheng could not help but turn and look at Chu Yang. Yes, this person definitely has ulterior motives. But if it was just ulterior motives, then it was still not worth my coming here. Tai Longcheng clasped his hands behind his back and said, I personally came here because I have my reasons. But the most important thing was to stop all who were interested in this heavenly armament pavilion. Regardless of who, once they have come here, they could be used by this shop owner to further his own agenda. Even though I also don't know what his real agenda is, I only need to blockade this whole place and his plan will fall apart. The purpose of this shop was not to sell weapons, but to create publicity. Tai Longcheng coldly concluded, exposing Chu Yang's plan in the open. A total blockade is the simplest and most effective tactic. If it was at a different time, then I would have left him to do whatever he wanted. But currently, Daewoo Qingru has started some movements in the southwest. This is why I cannot ignore any little ambiguous actions. These words of Tai Longcheng made Chu Yang extremely shocked. Cold sweats ran down his back. Whoever said the people in this world are fools? This Tai Longcheng is really scary. Even though he does not know my exact plans, his simple blockade tactic has ruined my plans completely. I have no way of moving further. Daewoo Qingru's plans for Ironcloud Nation started 10 years ago. At that time, there was suddenly a large number of killers sneaking into Ironcloud Nation. The strange thing was, they did not kill any royal members or officials. Instead, they killed the famous blacksmiths of Ironcloud Nation, creating a wave of bloody wind and rain. Tai Longcheng's eyes became sharp as a needle. Even now, all these cases are still left as unsolved. From the most skilled blacksmiths who were capable of creating the highest quality weapons to apprentices who were just learning the craft, none were spared. In fact, even military blacksmiths died one after another, suddenly and mysteriously. From top to bottom, more than 30,000 blacksmiths from Ironcloud Nation were killed. Especially those blacksmiths at the level of master craftsman, none were lucky enough to be spared. Ironcloud Nation was famous as a nation with the most mines in the entire continent, but it has not one blacksmith. Such a funny situation actually happened. Tai Longcheng sighed and said, the most hateful thing was that those damned officials in the Justice Department only saw these cases as ordinary, and just went through the motions. It was not until 3 of our biggest weapons dealers in Great Zhao and 17 secret weapon suppliers in other nations were completely destroyed right down to the roots, that everyone realized this would shake the country to its core. But it was too late. The cruelest thing was the places of those master blacksmiths were also burned to the ground. The life's work and legacy was destroyed in only a moment. You can say that all the precious smithing knowledge passed down to now is only a handful. Chu Yang was shocked after hearing this. So this is why Ironcloud Nation does not even have one blacksmith. This one drastic move of Daewoo Qingru was indeed sinister. In the beginning, the deaths of a few blacksmiths did not get the attentions of the higher-ups of Ironcloud Nation. By the time they took notice, this massacre was already coming to an end. Because of Daewoo Qingru's ambitions, tens of thousands of lives were destroyed in such short time. Plus, until now, the officials could not find any evidence whatsoever. This type of massive tactic was shocking. After this massacre, if Great Zhao took over Ironcloud Nation, they would not have to worry about an uprising. How many blacksmiths could a country have? Because Iron Cloud Nation was a place with many ore mines, skilled blacksmiths gathered there in great numbers. But after this, how many were left? Even young men who had the intentions of learning this craft would abandon such thoughts once they learned of what had happened. Weapons. This was the key. Without weapons, what would they fight with? With their hands? What a joke. The more he thought about it, the more bone-chilling it was. This was the lives of tens of thousands of people, not pieces of wood. Even the blacksmiths who had nothing to do with the wars. This was pure brutal murder. A person who could give such orders. How cruel. How unscrupulous, how mad. Not long after this massacre, Great Zhao fell under the leadership of Daewoo King Ru and started to continually go to war with Iron Cloud. Each year, the two countries, Great Zhao and Iron Cloud, fought with each other countless times. Of course, because of this, the supply of weapons could not meet the demands of war. And at these key periods, Iron Cloud Nation had no blacksmiths to make weapons for the soldiers. At first glance, these incidents were just brutal killings of the innocent, but who could have known that this would determine the outcome of a war between two nations? War is non-stop, fighting and killing goes on without end. But Iron Cloud Nation, famous for having the most ore mines, with the highest quality iron ores, was unable to create decent weapons. Generals and commanders were weakened by the use of mediocre weapons. They could not find a decent weapon that suited them and were stuck with using ordinary weapons like soldiers. Basic soldiers were not affected because they have always used ordinary weapons. However, who would have thought that, by killing all the blacksmiths, they were actually aiming at the military leaders of Iron Cloud? Tai Longcheng growled. A person capable of using weapons weighing 80 pounds was forced to use weapons weighing only 8 pounds. Plus, these weapons would shatter upon contact with the enemy's weapons. Would this not drop their ability to fight down more than one level? This is the key reason why Iron Cloud Nation could only defend, but never have the ability to end the invasion. On the battlefield, soldiers held these inferior weapons to fight with the enemies, only to their weapons shatter on contact. It was such a joke. Yet so many brave men died tragically under the hands of enemies inferior to them. So Iron Cloud Nation continually lost on the battlefield. Even though all the soldiers tried their hardest to kill the enemies, they could not change the tides of battle. In the end, they could only watch as 7 provinces and 48 towns become part of Great Zhao. And Daewoo King Ru's fame grew from there. For 8 years, Iron Cloud Nation tried its best to nurture new blacksmiths, but could not make up for that lost. Moreover, all those brothers lost in battle will never return. So high-quality weapons were Iron Cloud Nation's biggest pain. But now, you dared erected Heavenly Armament Pavilion on the busiest street of Iron Cloud Citadel. Tai Longcheng looked coldly at Chu Yang. These two words Heavenly Armament touched Iron Cloud Nation's most sensitive nerve. Speak. What are your motives? After hearing Tai Longcheng's explanation, the young lady's gaze became as sharp as a sword while she stared straight at Chu Yang. Tai Longcheng took a deep breath and said, when I heard the 3 words Heavenly Armament Pavilion, the first thing I thought of was all the people who died in the wars, leaving their corpses in the battlefields. Do you know how many people died in anguish right in front of me? They were all Iron Cloud's heroes. Chu Yang finally understood why this high-ranking guest came here himself and why he gave the order to block off Heavenly Armament Pavilion. So my actions had accidentally reopened his old wounds. Even though Tai Longcheng's appearance seemed relatively calm, but Chu Yang could feel that this famed general was filled with sorrow and anguish. Chu Yang knew that Iron Cloud was in desperate need of blacksmiths. Many weapons were bought from a limitless nation at cutthroat prices. However, he did not expect that all of this had to do with a most inhumane scheme. General Tai's insight is indeed sharp. Chu Yang smiled. In that case, are you admitting that you are a spy sent to Daewoo King Ru? Admit? Chu Yang smiled. If I was really working for Daewoo King Ru, why would I use such an open method to spy? Tai Longcheng eyes fixed on Chu Yang, then he said coldly, whatever that's done, must have its own reasons. I dislike Daewoo King Ru, is that reason enough? Chu Yang smiled. Suddenly, his body flashed and he was at the main door. With incredible speed, He charged at one of the guards in the group. He attacked without any warning. A second ago, he was talking and smiling with Tai Longcheng, and in the blink of an eye, his fist had almost connected with that guard's throat. That person turned his body in shock as the other three pulled out their swords. The three sword points were like venomous vipers springing at Chu Yang's direction. All four were experts, and worked in concert with each other. When one of them was attacked, the other three attacked back at the same time. Chu Yang laughed as his arm suddenly sprung out. His hand, without an inch of steel, went straight for the shining blades. Bam, bam, bam. The three sounds rang out. All the witnesses could not believe what had just happened in front of their eyes. After Chu Yang's hand touched the guards' swords, their swords that had killed countless enemies immediately got chopped in two. When the guards saw Chu Yang was using his empty hand to fight with their swords, their eyes showed a trace of cruelty. They were sure that Chu Yang's hand would become minced meat. They never expected that upon contact, their swords were actually what got chopped up. No one thought that such a thing would occur. At that moment, everyone could not help but freeze in shock. Chu Yang's hand stopped right at the throat of the guard from earlier. Very gently, Chu Yang lightly pinched the man's Adam apple. In a flash, Chu Yang was back in front of Tai Longcheng. The four revered martial artist masters looked at Chu Yang with terror in their eyes. A person's hand went against their extremely sharp swords, and scarily enough, their swords were chopped. Is he even human? Especially shocked was the guard who was pinched by Chu Yang. His body had become ice cold. If his opponent had used a little more force, his Adam's apple would have been crushed. Tai Longcheng called Chu Yang a spy, and Chu Yang could not prove his innocence. With such a situation, the best and most effective explanation was force. There is also another reason. It is so I could easily assassinate you. Is that enough reason? There is also. Chu Yang smiled and picked up a fragment of one of the broken swords on the ground. He then used his own sword to shave it like a carrot. This is divine weapon. Is this enough? All of a sudden, everyone looked at Chu Yang with surprise in their eyes. Assassinate me? Ha ha ha. That easily? To kill me, you alone are not enough. You certainly are confident in your abilities, but in this world, there are some things where just confidence is not enough. Of course, you not liking Daewoo King Ru is reason enough for me. Tai Longcheng used his hawk eyes to look at Chu Yang for a while and suddenly smiled. The other two reasons are not important. After a pause, he continued, good kid. When Chu Yang showed such monstrous force, he was surprised, but it did not scare him. Tai Longcheng knew that if Chu Yang wanted to attack him, he would not have been so gentle. Chu Yang actions just now was done using borrowed power from Nine Tribulations Sword. By bringing Nine Tribulations Sword's tip to his hand, he could not fail. The moment his hand came into contact with the guard's swords, their essence was absorbed by Nine Tribulations Sword. So what Chu Yang touched was essentially tiny scraps of metal. Otherwise, Chu Yang would not have been able to cut these swords like they were mud even if he used swords forged from fine iron. The four guards' swords were definitely not ordinary items. They might not be divine weapons, but their quality exceeded that of ordinary swords by far. So, naturally, Tai Longcheng's people were shocked. I want to know your true motive. Tai Longcheng said with great gravity. True motive. Chu Yang mulled over it for a while. Daewoo King Ru and I really don't have any blood debts. But I just don't want him to win this war. And I definitely do not want him to achieve his goal of unifying all under the heavens. Because of Tai Longcheng's blockade, Chu Yang did not have a chance to meet with Tai Budan. But Tai Longcheng came here himself. Even though he said he was blockading Chu Yang's house, he also gave Chu Yang an opportunity in coming here. Chu Yang already demonstrated his power, he also showed off his wealth. The only thing that was left now was to show off his wisdom, because looking at Tai Longcheng's reaction was, in a way, looking at Tai Butan's reaction. I believe no one here wants Daewoo King Ru's goals to be achieved. Tai Longcheng smiled faintly. Chu Yang's demonstration of power seemed to have put Tai Longcheng at ease somewhat. Chu Yang smiled and said, currently, all of Ironclad want to defeat Daewoo King Ru, but based on all aspects, this is a delusion. You absolutely do not have the ability to succeed. Based on what? This time, the young lady spoke. Tai Longcheng smiled coldly and remained quiet. He was just sharp and ferocious a moment ago, but now he seemed to keeping everything in check. First, Daewoo Qingru is powerful with Great Zhao's military power of about 6 million soldiers. Famed generals ranking from 2nd to 7th are all from Great Zhao, each one an out-of-this-world talent. On the other hand, Ironclad only has 2 famed generals ranking 1st and 10th. We all know this ranking is not just for show. Each person in these positions has been through countless life and death situations. Each famed general has bathed his blade with the blood of no less than hundreds of thousands of lives. Chu Yang quickly brought out his knowledge from his past life. Second, even though Great Zhao has an emperor in name, the truth is all the power is in Daewoo Qingru's hands. Moreover, Daewoo Qingru's spy network surpasses that of Ironclad by far. Even though the Golden Horse Riders department never showed itself, within it there is a large number of talents. What's more is there are elite fighters. Their number is about 8,000. This piece of information was like lightning to Tai Longcheng and the young lady. Golden Horse Riders department? You also know about Golden Horse Riders department? Tai Longcheng's thick eyebrows came together as he waved a signal with his hand. His countenance was extremely guarded. The soldiers outside immediately moved back by more than 100 feet. The whole street was silent. Besides the bodyguards, there was not a shadow within the 100-feet radius. There was suddenly some swooshing sounds on the roof as countless masters quickly appeared, bringing the entire room under tight security. Heavenly Armament Pavilion was now under such tight security that even a mosquito would not be able to pass. It was enough to show the importance of such information to Tai Longcheng. However, it was strange that the young lady, who clearly had no business with such important national matter, was not sent away by Tai Longcheng. In fact, it seemed as if he approved of her presence. Chu Yang's eyes lit up as he thought to himself, it seems this young lady's position is not so simple. My previous guess that she was just someone of royal blood is not quite accurate. This young lady is either a princess or the king's favorite wife.